occupied.
I am ready. Are we ready? Staff ready? Ms. Clerk, you're ready to go. All right. All right, I'd like to call our meeting of December 9th, 2025 to order. Look to the clerk for a roll call, please.
Mayor Doring,
Here.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Here.
Councilmember Spoterato,
Here.
Councilmember Barrett,
Here.
and Summers absent.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And a little exercise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We're now on adoption of the agenda, and I'll look to the clerk for any changes to the agenda.
Yes, staff is pulling consent item 10.2, the Tank 2 Rehabilitation Project. That's being removed and will be brought back most likely in January. And then prior to the meeting, we had also recognized that the public hearing, item 11.1, which is the building code standards adoptions, will be moved to a date certain of January 13th, 2026.
All right. With those changes, are any other changes or additions to the agenda, Mr. Clerk?
That's all I have.
I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda with the two changes noted.
I'll make a motion to
yeah.
adopt with the two changes noted.
I'll second.
So, and there's a motion and a second. I'll just reiterate that 10.2 will be removed from the consent calendar. From the public hearing calendar, 11.1 will be removed, and we'll take those up again in January. All in favor of the adoption of the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any disagreeing? No. That motion passes unanimously. All right. We're on to approval of the minutes. These minutes are from our special city council meeting of November 18th and our regular city council meeting of November 25th. Any changes to the minutes to be noted or corrections to be noted? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes from those two meetings.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from those two meetings.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes from November 18th, special meeting, and November 25th, a regular city council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. Now we're on to public forum. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public forum. Each person's comment shall be limited to 4 minutes. Each person is entitled to speak on any non-agendized item only once at any meeting. Brief questions by council members for clarifications may be posed and answered, and council members may make requests that items be placed on future agendas. But in accordance with state law, no substantive discussion or action may take place unless until the matter properly appears on the agenda. All very formal, but we welcome comment from the public, 4 minutes, on any matter that is not on the agenda at this point. Ms. Stanton, how are you? You look like you're bundled up there.
Is it cold in here? Or is it?
Is it?
I mean,
Is it?
It's not just you.
We can't see our breath yet, so it's a good sign.
I was looking forward to coming in here. My house is so cold, but I didn't expect this. I'm a little confused. I thought purchase of new vehicles was going to be on consent, but it's not, I see. So maybe I can just say a couple words about that for the future. Is that true?
Well, It is on our agenda, so.
It's on the agenda. New business, is that where it is? Old business? It's a long agenda.
Where is it, Ms. Clerk? I don't know the
It
number.
is 13.3, I believe.
13.3. So it would not be appropriate to make comment at this point, but you can wait until then.
See you later.
All right. All right. Anyone else wishing to make comment? Okay, then I'll close.
Greetings, I'm Deanna Griffin, Friends and Foundation, St. Helena Public Library, and I just want to commend you all for the future efforts of this week of your communal gathering to get to know one another. I saw the special meeting agendas only in the last few days, and I'm really inspired and glad that you're doing that. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah, we're looking forward to getting to know one another. Right, Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
No, thank you for that comment. Anyone else wishing to approach your council and make comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I also wanted to note written public comment received by Michelle Cavell, Caitlin Walter, Kelly Wheaton, and Joshua Park. All right, now we're on to reports by staff, city council, future agenda items, and AB 1234 reports. Before I turn to you, Mr. Camillo, I'll turn to our city attorney who's standing in for Ethan Zandres. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I think it's Boer.
Boer, yeah.
Boer. Mr. Boer.
So the council met in closed session regarding labor negotiations earlier, took no reportable action.
All right, short and sweet. I love that. Mr. Camillo.
We have two announcements. First, I'll call upon acting Director of Community Services, Ashley Sylvester.
Welcome, Ms. Sylvester. How are you?
I am doing great. Everyone's tongue twisted tonight. I just have a couple announcements on some upcoming events with community services to put on your horizon. The most recent is going to be this Saturday, December 13th at the fire station, our annual gingerbread house event that we now are partners with Up Valley Family Center and the Fire Association as well. That'll be, again, the 13th from 11 to 2 p.m. It is a completely free event. We'll have pizza, Santa photos there, as well as free gingerbread houses to build. And next, on December 18th, that is a Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m., we have our first, I can't pronounce this name, it is Spanish, Comunitario Posada. And so that will be at the City Hall grounds from 7 to 9 p.m. That is a community gathering. We'll have food there, drinks there, and just a time to really come together during this season of holidays. And so that is an effort of the Community Services Department and community members putting that on. And then lastly, just to put a bow on this holiday season, we have a cookie and ornament decorating at the Carnegie Building on December 20th from 11 to 1 p.m. And that'll be another free event for families to come. We'll have hot chocolate. I think we need some water in with all of these sweets that we're going to have, so we'll throw some water in there too. But cookies from the St. Helena High School Culinary Department, they'll be making those cookies for us and providing those. And then recreation staff will be there facilitating that as well. So thank you so much.
Excellent. A lot going on in December in St. Helena.
Not a time off.
All right, get out there. Thank you for your service. All right, Mr. Mello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The two other items. One is just want to announce or remind folks that there'll be a study session of the Planning Commission on December 16th at 4:30 at Vintage Hall. We had sent out information in the newsletter. And the only other thing I want to mention is our impending departure of the Director of Community Development Department, Maya DeRosa. She still hasn't responded to my request to delay it until next year. I've made that attempt several times, but to no avail. She'll be missed. We will celebrate her retirement second meeting in January. More to come on that, but I just want to share that in the last 3 years that I've worked with her, it's been wonderful. She's made a big difference to the city, and she'll be missed by myself and the executive team.
All right. More to be said about that when the time comes. So, all right. Anything else under this item? How about from my colleagues? Anything to add to this area? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to presentations and public recognitions, 8.1, and this is an Arbor Day Proclamation, which I'll read from the dais. All right, and we'll welcome comments from our staff. All right, so this is entitled Proclamation, Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. Whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. Whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. Whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for homes, fuel, and other countless products. Whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the city of St. Helena has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation for 26 years and desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Paul Doring, Mayor of the City of St. Helena, along with the St. Helena City Council, declare the 9th day of December 2025 as Arbor Day in our city, and will be holding tree plantings in recognition of Arbor Day, the purpose of which is expressing our support for efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And I know, Mr. Mello, we won't be doing the tree planting tonight, but when will we be doing that?
There's a quick presentation or
Okay.
comments that the
I'll look to you,
director
Mr.
will
Leach.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. Good evening. We are doing a tree planting on Thursday, December 11th.
Okay.
It's coming up this Thursday at 2 o'clock at Baldwin Park. And I don't know if Victor wanted to share any more about that. Victor Neary is our Parks and Trees Superintendent.
Please do so, Victor. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
having
being
me
here.
tonight. Good evening, City Council and members of the public. My name is Victor Neri, and I'm the Superintendent for Parks and Trees of St. Helena. Thank you for this honor. Planting a tree is it's more than just improving our landscape. It's an investment in our future. Trees connect generations, enhance our community, and help restore the world around us without knowing. I accept this recognition on behalf of everyone who believes in caring for our environment, one simple action at a time. This year we planted 57 new trees, and we're planning to add a few more before the year's end. I invite all of you to join us for Arbor Day 2025, December 11 at 2 p.m. at Baldwin Park, just located off Spring Street. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I'll pass this on to you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Keep planting trees.
Mr. Mayor, may I comment?
Of course.
So, as has been our tradition in the last few years, we celebrate Arbor Day in December, and it's part of our requirements to have this proclamation and there's some other conditions to be a Tree City USA. We will be changing our process a little bit. One of the reasons we chose December is so that if we plant in December, the trees are more likely to survive. But Arbor Day, of course, is in April, and so we always have this dichotomy between the community asking, what are you doing for Arbor Day? And we usually say, well, we did that in December. So what we are going to be doing is, in this coming April, in order to qualify and meet our requirements, we will have another proclamation in April, just to warn you in advance. But starting next December, we'll continue to plant in December, and then have a symbolic planting in April each year, when we do the proclamation.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay. So no other items on in the presentation and public recognitions category, item 8, so we'll move on to item 9. And as I understand it, this is a status report on Local Agency Formation Commission, also known as LAFCO, Napa County, on the Napa County Municipal Service Review process, and I understand that you will be giving that report, Mr. Comello.
I will be, Mr. Mayor. I just want to provide
an update. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry. Just want to provide some information about both the status of the process itself as well as annexations. I know that's an interesting topic of interest in the community. So there are several points I want to make. First of all, every county in the city, in the state rather, has a LAFCO, which stands for the Local Agency Formation Commission. The Napa County LAFCO aims to undertake MSR, Municipal Services Review, every 5 years. You should know, however, that we haven't gone through a process, the City of St. Helena has not gone through a process since 2008, so we are clearly overdue. At the request of the consultant that's been hired by the county's LAFCO, staff has provided lots of information and data starting about July, excuse me. Former ACM April Mitz authored a staff report which the council received on April 8th, which provided lots of information. So if the community wants information about some of the details, some of the definitions, they can go to that report and find it. But I'll read an excerpt from that report. An MSR, which is the Municipal Services Review, acts as a foundational data used by LAFCO to make informed decisions about agency's sphere of influence. Remember that term, sphere of influence. Boundaries, potential service expansions, and the information determinations in an MSR are intended to guide and inform sphere of influence decisions. As a central planning responsibility of the LAFCO, it is the determination of a sphere of influence for each local agency that is designated the territory it believes represents the appropriate future service area and jurisdictional boundaries of affected agency. Essentially, the service area definition is important because it drives or influences annexations. I know that's an important topic for us. The factors that go into that analysis includes growth of future and population growth projected in the area, location characteristics of various communities, including disadvantaged incorporated communities within contiguous sphere of influence, capacity of public facilities, adequacy of public services, infrastructure needs and deficiencies, financial ability of agencies to provide services, and so on. Generally, just so you know, annexations take anywhere from 2 to 3 years, closer to 3 than 2. It's a long process. It's inherently political. Generally requires, almost always requires a tax sharing agreement with the county because, as you can imagine, the county loses revenue, and so the agreement is intended to the extent possible, make it whole. At the same time, if a city extends its boundary and is able to take territory through annexation, it is then responsible for additional services to those communities. So that needs to be taken into account as well. Ideally, the property owner, the county, and the city on the same page and come to an agreement, but sometimes that's not the case. So this is, I just want to, I'm saying that because I just want to make sure that we set expectations. There's been a lot of conversation. I know that about particular revenue-generating businesses in the adjacent to the city that the community wants to annex. It's not easy. We have to go through this process or some process, and so we are in that process now. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions or comments from my colleagues? Just to be clear, it's not a guaranteed process. The result is never guaranteed, correct? It's a political negotiation to a certain degree, as well as a negotiation in terms of how burdens are shared.
Yes.
Correct, Mr. Comello?
That's exactly it.
All right. Folks in the community have already asked me why I haven't annexed Meadowood, and I refer them to Aaron. No, it's a long process that we're actually just beginning, and there have been a couple false starts on the MSR over the years. I've been on the council where we've started the process and we pulled back for whatever reasons that is. So that process will be very, very helpful, and I think the more data we can share and the more advocacy that we can import, in that process. And as you know, I'm on the LAFCO Commission, a representative of the Up Valley, I'm not the St. Helena representative per se, but Calistoga and Yountville. And so I'm having meetings with the executive director next week to discuss some of these items and get up to speed on what LAFCO is doing, and so we'll move forward in that direction. Anything else to add to that, Mr. Camello? I know you've been having conversations too.
Yeah, so we have had a staff team, and consistent with the council's direction to me in the past, we have brought on a couple of consultants that are providing specialized services on this regard. And our assistant city manager, Mr. Leach, has been a point person. We are, of course, consulting when getting assistance from BBK. Our next meeting with the county, formal meeting, is going to be in February. So we'll keep the council informed.
All right. Thank you for that. We will then move on to our consent calendar, noting that, if I'm not mistaken, it was 10.2 will be heard at a later time, so that will be removed from the consent calendar. And I'll
10.6.
Pardon?
10.6 was removed.
The Tank 2 Rehabilitation Project?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
10.6.
Okay, so you have it at, okay, so that was 10.2. All right, okay, that is fine. 10.6 is being removed. Any items that anybody in the public would like to have removed for further discussion? How about from my colleagues?
I would like to request 10.1.
Okay, 10.1 will be removed. Then I'll look for a motion to adopt the balance of the consent calendar with the exception of 10.1 and, as stated, 10.6 being removed.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar. And before we get to 10.1, we know that 10.6 has been removed. Roll call, Mr. I was going to say Mr. Clerk, and I know you don't like that, but Mr.
No, that
Clerk.
works too.
Okay.
Call me whatever.
All right, Mr. Clerk.
Councilmember Spoterato,
Yes.
Councilmember Barrick,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
Mayor Doring.
Yes. All right. And then I'll bring it back on 10.1. Maybe we can give just a brief description of what this is, and then we'll get to some of the comments or questions that the Vice Mayor has.
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this is a report that is actually required by legislation AB 1600 to report on our development impact fee activity. And so the report gives you an overview of what the fund balances are, the activity throughout the year, the revenues and expenditures, and then what CIP projects the funding was spent on. Thank you.
All right. I like short and brief. Vice Mayor, questions, comments?
Yeah, thank you for that. I enjoyed reading the report. I wanted to, propose that it was interesting to read what money is sitting in what accounts, and so I wanted to suggest or bring up that we might come back at some point in early 2026 for a little report on the plan and strategy for each funds. Like, I don't want to create a huge amount of work, but enough for us to be able to have a discussion so we all understand. Like, a couple of them, yeah, like, I know. But some of them were interesting, so that was my request. And I did have one other possible request. I noticed the $2.5 million sitting in the affordable housing. Is that right? Is that sound right? 2.5?
Yeah, we don't actually have a full 2.5 sitting in there. Some of it is long-term loans that have been given out for affordable housing projects, but it does.
Do you know how much is not?
It is on the top row there. It's 1.5 million as in a long-term
Okay.
receivable for affordable housing.
So I think maybe I missed that part, but it kind of brought to mind. Well, should we be doing more of what we've already done in terms of loans and with new housing opportunities, right? Using it as, should we be trying to use it as strategic capital to unlock something else? Should we be considering ADU incentive grants? I don't know. I wondered if there might be a discussion on that, and I wondered if some of our housing experts in the community might contribute to it. Just a thought. So I put two things in there, I guess.
Mr. Camello, do you want to make a comment? And I'll go back to our director also.
I do. Ms. Vice Mayor and I happened to have a conversation about this, so thank you for the heads up. What we think is possible is we can bring a report and have a longer conversation about some of the details and what we think we could use the monies for at the February 10th meeting. Does that work for you?
Great.
Yeah. So we can just do that if you come back, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I just, from my experience, I think I just want to make sure that it's connected to our budget process, because most of these funds, we can't use the whole amount. We're limited because our impact funds a certain amount based on each fund, and we tend to use those funds in conjunction with other funds, and so there's a bigger picture here, but there are a lot of policy questions too, and I agree with the Vice Mayor that we should probably have a more formalized look at those funds as we're going through the budget process, because I know that's the sausage making that happens a lot that sometimes we don't necessarily know about in terms of how those funds are utilized. And, and affordable housing is a good example of a fund. You've mentioned some potential uses. One of the potential uses I see, and we'll have to discuss this at some point in sort of the strategic planning session or a goal setting session, but in terms of whether we can use those funds for personnel, like a housing manager, someone devoted full-time to achieving a more robust activity in this space. And I don't know what the legal answer of that is, but that's a question I would have in addition to the questions that are raised here right now. So what do you think?
So there are different funds have different types of restrictions, and so we will, in our staff report, we will lay those out. And we'll also share with you some of the anticipated uses of these funds for the next few, couple of years. And in fact, I think a lot of that will come from the Public Works Department that is intending to use those monies, as the mayor mentioned, in conjunction with other stuff. So we'll come back with you on February 10th with more information.
All right.
Great.
Other questions or comments by my colleagues? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion in a second to adopt 10.1.
I make a motion to adopt 10.1 and accept the AB 1600 Development Impact Fee Report.
All right.
I'll second that.
Motion in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes. Now we're on to, let's see, where am I? All right, got that. Catch up here. All right, public hearings. 11.1 has been removed, as I understand it. Now we are on to 11.2. I'll read this out loud, and then I'll turn to you, Mr. Camello, to introduce the staff member. This is an introduction and waiver of first reading of an ordinance amending sections 17.22.050, alcoholic beverage sales, and 17.16.030B, residential development standards, residential zoning districts table, and note 5 of the St. Helena Municipal Code to correct clerical errors and inaccurate references.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The presentation will be made by Jackie O'Neill, Senior Planner, and of course, the Department Director will be available for answers.
Welcome, Ms. O'Neill. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members, and thank you for that great introduction of the item. So the purpose of this item is to correct inconsistencies within the zoning code and to align city regulations with current state law. Mr. Clerk, will you be? Thank you. Currently,
it may be frozen like the rest of us.
I'm used to advancing slides at the Planning Commission, so I wasn't sure. So currently, our zoning code has a 1,000-foot buffer from all schools, which prohibits alcohol sales in nearly all commercial areas of the city, including our downtown. The standard was added as part of the 2023 Comprehensive Zoning Code update, and based on our research, we can see that it was just added without a clear analysis of the practical effect on the city's built environment. You can see in this picture here, this is a 1,000-foot radial buffer from the St. Helena Elementary School, which effectively captures all of the commercial business, our downtown on Main Street, which makes all of those businesses that are selling alcoholic beverages non-conforming at this time. The previous code had no fixed distance standard, but it did require findings addressing proximity to schools, and the proposed amendment would correct existing nonconformities and restore flexibility while preserving the city's discretionary review and public noticing requirements. And likewise, this slide is showing a 1,000-foot buffer from where we are now, the St. Helena High School, which also is capturing some of our alcoholic beverage sales, wine tasting rooms, things of that nature. So the proposed amendment would delete the 1,000-foot location prohibition. It would add a new finding, which would read as the distance of proposed establishment from public and private schools, nursery schools, preschools, and daycare facilities. So that would be something that would be considered at the time of an alcoholic beverage sale, conditional use or a minor use permit. It would keep all of the existing conditional use or minor use permit findings for compatibility, health, and safety, and it would require that any new alcohol use subject to a conditional use permit would still go through a public hearing process. The proposed amendment will not change enforcement, hours of operation, or ABC licensing requirements. Which brings me to my next slide. So just to go through the process of an alcoholic beverage sale, the city is one part of the regulatory body, but there's also the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. They have their own separate noticing requirement. They are notifying property owners within 600 feet of any new alcoholic beverage license. So this picture here, we're all familiar with what these look like and windows of businesses who are applying for these applications. So that would remain in effect. And then our own use permit process, which pretty much all of our uses that have alcoholic beverage sales require either a conditional use permit or minor use permit. Conditional use permit is discretionary. The deciding body is the Planning Commission. Minor use permit is an administrative approval that is done at the staff level in the Community Development Department. Both of those go through staff and police department review. They require public noticing upon the approval for a minor use permit or public notice for a conditional use permit, public hearing at the Planning Commission. And combined, we find that these procedures make sure that there's plenty of opportunity for the public to comment and for staff to weigh in on a case-by-case analysis of the proposed use of alcoholic beverage sales. So, as I just said, there's plenty of city oversight through the conditional use permit and minor use process. There is the state regulatory agency that's also doing their own separate public noticing. The additional finding ensures that the distance from schools is still considered by staff, and the goal would correct the unintended blanket prohibition on alcoholic beverage sales, which affects many parts of the city. This has no potential significant effects per CEQA, and is consistent with the general plan's land use and see this. We're recommending that you adopt the proposed amendment, which would completely strike all of the location requirements, and continued on the next slide. Make a minor edit for grammatical purposes and add this additional finding, number 7. Moving on to the second part of the zoning ordinance amendment. This is for a endnote in the residential development standards table. So our development standards table goes through all of the development standards for any residential use. At the bottom of that table, there are several endnotes that are meant to provide clarification for anyone that is using that table. One of those endnotes incorrectly references that for the construction of an ADU, the maximum building gross floor area may be increased by up to 400 square feet. Our own ADU ordinance states 800 square feet, which is consistent with state law. So this is just a cleanup, not making any policy changes or changes to development limits. And here are those recommended red lines where you can see just striking out 4 and correcting it to, say, 800. So this did go to the Planning Commission on November 4th at a duly noticed public hearing, and the Planning Commission recommended that the City Council adopt the ordinance. So the recommendation before you this evening is to introduce and waive the first reading, find that the proposed amendments are exempt from CEQA, and approve and adopt the zoning ordinance as in the staff report and as presented tonight.
All right. Thank you for an excellent staff report. Any clarifying questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, let me open the public hearing, and I'll take public comment now on this matter if there is any. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to my colleagues for discussion, concerns, or consensus. I have no concerns about this matter and have no comments about it, but others may have. All right, and I'll look for a motion to adopt if that is the direction of our council. The recommendation.
I'll make the motion to adopt the staff's request.
All right.
I will second it.
Motion and a second to adopt the staff recommendation. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Spatarato,
Yes.
Councilmember Barrick,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
and Mayor Doring.
Yes. Thank you for that excellent report. Appreciate that. Thank you, colleagues, for moving through that item. Okay. All right, we're on to 11.3. Mr. Mello, this is introduce and waive first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 3.04 of the Municipal Code, purchasing of supplies, equipment, and services, and procedures for public works projects to update the city manager's signing authority and add a new section providing authority to adopt implementing regulations and administrative policies. Mr. Cabello, I'll let you introduce the item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last year, the previous council had directed staff to come back to the council with a recommendation to increase my signing authority as part of the process to make city services more efficient and responsive. So we have been working on it, and Director Kellogg, who's the director of our Admin Services Department, will make the presentation. Before she does, I want to make one point, and that is the intended, the increase that of signing authority that is being recommended does not change anything in terms of the budget. In other words, it doesn't impact the authority that the council has already given staff, nor does it change the dollar amount of the authorized budgets in each fund and for each department. This authority will only be used to address issues within each authorized line item that the council has already given us. So in other words, this doesn't cost the city any more money or in any way deviate from the council's direction as it relates to expenditures. With that, I'll turn it over to Director Kellogg.
Director Kellogg, welcome again.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. Next slide. So just some background here. The Municipal Code Chapter 3.04 sets the purchasing procedures and thresholds on the signing limits for contracts. The last update was conducted in 2015, which increased the administrative approval authority for the city manager from 10,000 to 25,000. The update improved efficiency and reduced time and costs for small purchases by reducing the number of reports that had to be prepared for city council. Next slide. So why is an update needed? Costs have significantly risen since 2015. This is now requiring us to do more city council staff reports being presented to council, and also inflation has reduced our purchasing power. Next slide. So we did a regional comparison. We looked at 30 different cities over 4 different counties, and we saw that in that comparison that there were only 2 other cities that had signing limits that were at or below 25,000.
Bless you.
So when looking at the average for each of those counties, we did see that the overall average for the 4 counties was actually 68,000, and St. Helena was among the lowest in the region. Next slide. Overall, in fiscal year 25, City Council reviewed 42 contracts. 16, or 38% of them, were between 10,000 and 60,000, and 52% were above 60,000. All the contracts were ultimately approved by City Council. By updating the signing authority, this could approximately save staff about 128 hours of staff time preparing staff reports each year. And so this, by making this change, it's going to streamline our approval process for lower value contracts. It'll reduce the number of staff reports that are prepared and presented to council and allow us to focus on other projects. Next slide. Our proposal is to align the administrative approval authority with the uniform construction contracts, which sets the limit at 60,000. We wouldn't be changing any other provisions of Chapter 3.04. We did make some updates to correct some pronouns and titles in there as well, though. And then there is no budget impact associated with this report. The signing authority can only be used for monies that are already adopted in the budget. If it's not in the budget, then we would need to present a report to council for approval. And then our recommended update is to increase the signing authority to 60,000. And again, as mentioned by City Manager Camillo and on the previous slide, this is only applicable for items previously authorized as part of the budget process. And open up for questions.
All right. Any initial clarifying questions from my colleagues? I'm going to ask you a question that may seem basic relative to what you have just reported. Why $60,000?
So when we looked at kind of the analysis, around the median was about 68,000, but we felt it would be more prudent to keep it consistent with the construction contract threshold, which is 60,000. So we would make them the same.
Okay, that's the primary reason.
That's the primary
I was
reason, yes.
assuming that
For
was the
consistency, yes.
All right. Other questions or comments? Go ahead. Well, I'm going to open the public hearing, and we'll take testimony now, comments from the public. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Vice Mayor Deasy, if you have questions or comments, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you for the report. I definitely understand and appreciate the look to for efficiency. And I can see how much time staff reports take, but I do have a few concerns that I just thought I would share as we all discuss. The first was just to notice that our initial, I know that you were looking at other cities, but we had in 2015, it was 25,000, and inflation's up 37%, but the increase is, I think, like 140%. So I just noticed that was a difference if there was something to that. And I also noticed that I know that it doesn't change the budget, but we do have an opportunity to come in under budget. So that could be something. And I also noticed that everything that's been brought has been approved, but maybe some things were not brought because they may not have support or might have been more controversial. So those were just the things that I'm thinking about that are sort of on the opposite of efficiency.
All right. Good questions. Responses from staff on it seems to be a relevant question. Doesn't concern me as much, but the lack of a match-up and alignment with the increase in inflation relative to the increase to $60,000.
I mean, I don't have the answer really, but it's an academic question. It could be that it was low to begin with, and so the percentage increase, it's the fact is that a product, a service today purchased by another jurisdiction would cost the same amount, if not more, if we purchased it. And I say more because the same service is procured for our city, because they're provided by providers, say, from south of the city, it could cost more for us to bring them here. But that aside, the service costs are the same. So the fact that other cities are having signing authority on average of $68,000 should be indicative of the inflation and the capacity of the agencies to procure services.
All right. I do have one concern, and maybe you can address it. So in those situations where the informal bidding process is used, it doesn't even get to a formal bidding process, and you have it's up to 60,000, correct? From, I don't know what the lowest threshold is. What are those numbers where it would be an informal bidding process where the staff has its own discretion?
I believe it is up to 60,000.
I believe so,
I'd have to
too.
double check, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's for construction contracts, I believe, yeah.
So the point I'm getting to is this, is that, so if the threshold is increased, for me, the seriousness of purpose and the intent of trying to reduce costs in that process is heightened. And I noticed some language in the ordinance or resolution, I don't know what it was, but that the staff member says may negotiate to try to reduce that cost if it's under $60,000. And I'm not entirely comfortable with the may negotiate language. It's more of a, if you're going to get a higher threshold, it seems to me that staff member should be instructed to try to negotiate, not may negotiate. And I don't know if shall is a stronger word, and I don't remember what that language is. But I guess the point I'm making is when you're giving a higher authority, I think there should be a little bit of a higher burden to try to find a bid. Assuming it's available, that we can source it, and all the things that we would normally go through, is it available? It may be a higher cost if we can't find it anywhere, whatever that is, that service. But we should incentivize or try to direct our staff to try to get the lowest price under those circumstances.
Yes, and this wouldn't negate our requirement to seek 3 proposals to make sure we are getting the lowest price. So we would still go through that process.
Yeah. I'm just saying there's a little bit of discretion there, when you have a higher authority. If it was at 25,000, I may not be as concerned, but because it goes to 60, there's a little bit more concern. Not a whole lot, just a little bit more. What do you think, Mr. Camillo?
So we always price conscious. We always try to get the best price for the city. So this doesn't change that. This only means that contracts that normally would come between 25,000, which was the previous threshold, and 60,000 now don't have to come to the city. But that doesn't, in any way change our practice in terms of adhering to internal processes and procedures, because we have other processes that control and require us to go through a certain process. That doesn't change that at all, nor does it change our incentive to get the best deal for the city possible.
All right, I'm going to hold you to that.
Absolutely.
All right. It's a concern, and maybe later we can look at that language to maybe change it slightly. I don't think it's not exactly before us tonight, but that was some language that I wanted to.
And that language, I'd be curious about where that is. Generally speaking, we always try to negotiate. So the may language has to do with, I think the context that it's written has to do with when it's appropriate. We may negotiate, we may not, because sometimes there are bids that are fixed, and so you don't have the ability to negotiate. That's what I think it means.
It is, it's page 154 in the whole agenda, and it's under 3.04.120. A. This is called informal bid procedure, solicitation of bids. If it is determined that the request is of a sufficient size and time allows, the purchasing officer or a designee, before issuing the purchase order to a specific for purchases greater than $5,000, well, it's going to be changed, but it says for purchases greater than $5,000 to $60,000, obtain at least 3 written bids or price quotes. The purchasing officer or a designee may negotiate to obtain the lowest possible contract amount from any vendor contacted who can provide supplies, general service, or equipment within the time constraints of the department's request. It goes on, but it's, the may negotiate language doesn't seem as,
Yeah, but that's not about the price, though. That has to do with.
but it is about the price because the authority has gone up to 60,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it is about the price.
Yeah, I think the context, you want to explain this, Mr. Leach? Yeah, please.
I can take a stab at it. I agree it's not phrased in the most elegant way, but I think the may qualifies the kind of time constraints outlined in the first sentence of that section, where the negotiation may happen where time permits. There may be circumstances where a purchase has to be made where there's no time to negotiate, and I think that this language is allowing for that latitude.
All right. All right, we'll come back and visit that later. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, but I'll accept it for now, and look for any other comments by my colleagues. Yes, please.
Can I ask you, so was that chapter 3.04? Is that what you were referencing?
Yes.
Okay.
Point 120, yeah.
Okay, because that was what I noticed in the staff report when they mentioned no other changes recommended to the purchasing system or policies, and all the requirements of chapter 3.04 remain in effect. So that's what I was just making
All
sure
right.
that's what, okay.
All right.
Clarification,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, as long as the staff is instructed to do their best to get the lowest bid, that's my concern. So whether that's in here or not, I mean, I would like to have it in here, but we'll visit that another time. All right. Yes.
I do feel a little bit uncomfortable with it, given that we are still struggling with budget and deficit. Have we thought about holding this off until we have a balanced budget?
I have, and I don't see how it makes a difference.
Ms. Barrett.
I think our vice mayor's comments are wise ones. They're important. We have ordinance that we passed previously, earlier in the year, that put some stipulations around spend for exactly what the vice mayor is referring to. And we did agree to review that, I think, every 6 months. I could be wrong. Maybe it was 3 months, but I believe it was 6 months. That being said, I think what we've learned over the course from that period is some unintended consequences that I think we've all talked about. And those unintended consequences were already previously approved budget items that we've already looked at as part of the annual budget process and deliberated on and approved coming back, which isn't great for anybody. And is it right to assume this is to address some of those sticky wickets? That's good. So I think your opening statement, you also indicated that this would only be for budgeted items, and it would not allow for you guys to move money from one fund to another fund or one GL to another GL to prevent kind of the funny money situation I think the vice mayor is rightly concerned with.
Yes, we wouldn't be using this. In fact, in those circumstances, we would come to council. But we actually, we have had internal conversations about that. The intent is not to, that's why I emphasized that in the beginning of my comments, that this is not intended to subvert or go around the council's intent, as appropriated by the council.
And I think the second point, right, is, hey, we might be able to save money, right? We don't have to just spend everything we're budgeting. And I think that's a really good ethos. And that comes with us explicitly trusting you and the executive management team and staff to treat every dollar as if it was your own, right? Which we're counting on.
Indeed, absolutely. I think I must say that.
Or treat it as if it's mine. That's even worse.
We never spend anything.
What he said.
He said.
I just want to assure the council that staff, particularly the executive team, already is quite conscious of our budget situation. And in fact, you'll see in a couple items today that we are taking actions because of that. And so this is not intended to in any way change how much money we use, but rather how efficiently we use staff time. The other point I want to make is that historically, the city has, well, I'll just move on. That's good enough.
All right. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Can you define what is meant by budgeted item? Because there are sort of placeholders in the budget, and so is that included? What defines a budgeted item per this policy?
Well, when the staff brings the budget out to the council and it's approved, they are in certain line items, and so it's for that purpose. And there are some items that are only, for example, last week we had this conversation about those $50,000. They went in three different buckets. While we didn't have we didn't know, for example, we would need them for recruiting, but we didn't move that from anywhere. We use it in the account it was intended. We then came to the council for the item. In this case, I think it was $25,000 each for the consultants. The only change would be that now I would be able to authorize that, but we wouldn't be moving monies from one account to the other. It would be within that
But
fund.
if it fits within a placeholder, if an item fits within a sort of placeholder, then it is spendable up to $60,000.
Yes, basically.
I'm not sure, could you give me, I'm not familiar with a placeholder in a budget. It's budgeted in our budget for a certain amount of money. What kind of an example would you give?
We had a couple of line items we had in the city manager's budget, I believe also in city councils and non-department miscellaneous contracts, and
Right.
that's what Vice Mayor Deasy is referring to.
But there's an amount.
There's an amount
Stated.
that's included in
Right.
the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I could give another example too. Like I have in my HR budget, I have a line item there for a labor relations support. And so I have like 50,000 budgeted there, but even though it's budgeted, I would still have to bring a report to council under the current signing authority.
All right.
And this would allow us to just have the contract signed by the city manager.
All right, thank you. Yeah, please.
So I guess that makes me bring up a question. I mean, so I'm understanding, 60,000 are going to be, it's going to be for budgeted items, solely for budgeted items that we already know are going to happen. We're well aware of the process of that item. It's just something that we have to add on to. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
I apologize, I'm not clear on the
So
question.
I'm just saying, so if these are items, so like say we budget, I don't know, $100,000 for a certain item on our budget, wet water, whatever related, and say, oh shoot, it wound up going over by $50,000, but we're budgeted for up to $400,000 for that item, so we're just going to move forward. Is that what I'm understanding is kind of what we're talking about?
Well, in that scenario, we would have to come to council because that would exceed the signing authority of the city manager. So if it exceeded that authority, it has to be brought to council.
But if it was 50,000, it would be under the 60.
It would be. So if it was 50,000 and let's say it went over by $5,000, then he would be able to sign that administratively.
Okay. So is it, I mean, I think part of me also said, and I want to address the other part, so that some of this is miscellaneous or things that were in a bucket that aren't necessarily for a specific project. For those items, could we make an amendment saying for those kinds of items, it would need to come to the council rather than signing under 60,000, just so we understand exactly what that miscellaneous bucket is being used for?
That would place a restriction, and that's what we're trying to avoid with this action. So, for example, in that we talked about the $50,000 item earlier, it was for contracts, but we didn't know that we would need a contract for an executive recruiter. But it's intended for contracts. So, in that sense, from my perspective, there's no way for us to know ahead of time that we would need for executive recruiters. And if we set it for executive recruiters and now we need it for something else, we would have to come back. So that would kind of negate what we're trying to do, which is to streamline the process. So what we are requesting is, as long as it is in the executive recruitment, miscellaneous in this case. By the way, most of our monies are not in miscellaneous, so that's not a best example. But what I think Councilmember Barrick was saying was we shouldn't be taking that money, moving it into some other account, or for example, moving it from the library to Park and Rec, or from the Park and Rec to Public Works. That's the kind of stuff that we don't want to be doing, and that we would not do. If we did that, we would simultaneously bring that action to council and say, just so you know, we need to spend this money, we just have this need, that we don't have money in this account where it should be appropriately be spent on. We're going to be moving it from this account to this account. Do we have your authority? So we would come to the council on that in those cases, regardless of what the dollar amount was. So we would always come to you for that authority.
Other perspectives. I actually, I hadn't thought about this issue, but so as I understand the point being made by Ms. Spataroto, Councilmember Spataroto, is, there is not a full transparency under certain items that are labeled in a very general way. Sure. So you're going through the budget process, and we all assume that's the time to weigh in on these issues, public, council, staff, everybody, so we know this is what we are setting money aside for. These are our priorities. We're being transparent about how we're spending our money and allocating it. There are some parts of the budget where it's labeled in a very general way, and we don't know. We have a general idea, like you said, contracts, but that's kind of a little bit nebulous. So I think the point that Councilmember Spataroto is suggesting is that maybe we can give you the authority with the exception of those areas in the budget that are not well defined. And I mean, there aren't that many. Are there?
It would be operationally difficult. I'll let Ms. Kellogg opine on that. Having managed budgets in other cities, to have reports actions to come to you for those items, the question becomes which of those accounts we need to come to you. It becomes more complex. And so I think at some point we need to ask ourselves, what is the definition of signing authority at other jurisdictions, which is what we're trying to benchmark. And the answer is, if it is below a certain amount, then staff has the authority to expend the monies. Mind you, we had this whole discussion about those $50,000, three of them, all totaling $150,000, and I'm grateful that those numbers were there because we, as it turns out, as we predicted, we needed those monies. And so if we didn't have it, then what would have happened? Again, we don't exactly know all the needs that we have ahead of time. So there needs to be some amount of flexibility for certain relatively small amount of money. Remember, our budget is about $20 million, and this was $150,000 that was in miscellaneous accounts.
All right, Director Kellogg, what you say you on that item, whether there's some labels that are a little bit vague. I didn't see that as a major issue because I don't think there are that many, but are you saying that would raise a lot of, Mr. Carmelo is saying that would raise a lot of complications. I'm not seeing that, but maybe he's right, and I don't know.
I'm not.
I'm putting you on the spot because.
I mean, it would just kind of negate the purpose of raising the authority because we'd have to prepare a report and take it to council. But again, there's not very many circumstances where we have line items that don't have a defined area that is being spent on.
And that's the point I'm making. There's so few of them that I don't think it would come up that often, but maybe I'm wrong. Anybody else have an idea how we get consensus on this? I'm okay with the authority. I just thought that there are labels there. There's like, okay, what was that budgeted for? Nobody knows. And so I guess the point is, well, we need the money and it defeats it, but I'm just not sure how often that comes up. It's come up once. Has it come up very many times on these miscellaneous items?
My fear is when we have these rules, right? And if there's someone forgets to do this, then we are in violation of our policy that we agreed on. And so to me, it's what is the way in which we can adhere to council policy in a seamless and consistent manner. And that's what I'm afraid of.
Fair enough. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Are there some examples of contracts that have come before us in the past 6 months or a year that, that are under 60,000 that have not been budgeted?
In the past year, I don't believe so. We've been pretty good about sticking to the budget, and City Manager Camello has a strict policy too of not utilizing reserves outside of our budget process, whether it be the mid-cycle budget update or mid-year. So I don't believe that we have anything that has been not budgeted.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation. Yeah, we open and close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All right. Motion and second. Further comment? Further discussion by my colleagues? Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Barrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Spoterato,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Abstain?
Mayor Doring.
Yes. Okay. I think it'll be a work in progress, Mr. Camello. I think there's a couple of interesting items that we can go back with maybe further clarification. I understand your point about a little bit of paranoia, like, oh, no, this was, the language is a little too unknown, but we should continue to explore that, give you the authority, but also provide the transparency. I think those are the two goals I'm trying to accomplish. All right, thank you. Okay. All righty. Everybody good? No need for breaks yet? All right. All right. Looks like we're on to item 12.1. Is that correct, Mr.? Okay. I'll just read this. This is 12.1. Adopt a resolution authorizing existing water customers in the Magnolia Oaks subdivision to connect to their potable water service for irrigation purposes. Been a fair amount of public comment on this. I'll turn it over, and we've read that, of course. Mr. Camello, I'll let you introduce the item, and then you can introduce a staff member if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that Assistant City Manager Leach is dying to respond to this.
How do I follow that introduction? Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is a returning item that was originally heard before you at the November 18th. We have, I would say, attempted to endeavor to capture both council direction and public comments. Really the goal is to make it simpler. Again, that was the goal. And so I'll kind of lay that out there at the onset of the presentation. So let's walk through what was changed between since the last time we presented this to you. Next slide, please. So as we recall, the Magnolia Oaks subdivision has purple pipe throughout it that is connected to a potable well that has failed, and the residents have brought that to our attention earlier this year. And so we'll go to the next slide. And so the idea is that we don't want to connect potable water to the purple pipe. Why? Because the purple pipe ultimately is going to be utilized potentially for recycled water, but it's already had a decade plus of non-potable water running through it. So the idea, at least temporarily, is to abandon that purple pipe in place. Next slide, please. And so part of the condition that we had talked about with City Attorney Walsh present was the idea of bifurcating the requirement for the residents to impose or put pressure on the property owner of the well to abandon that. And so the idea is that the city is going to pursue with the property owner in conjunction with their well permit to effectuate a abandonment of the well. So that's no longer on the resident's responsibility. But we feel that in an effort to keep the health of the aquifer resilient and not have this, a column that's available for contamination or misuse, that well facility should be abandoned. Next slide. So that kind of speaks to that, so that pollutants don't get transferred, who's responsible. The CCNRs kind of talk about that, and so again, we're going to go pursue that opportunity with the property owner. Next slide. And so then we talked a little bit about the purple pipes, and there's meters that are in place that connect the purple pipe system in the street to the on-site irrigation systems for the property owners. Next slide, please. And why do we want to remove the purple pipe meters? So there's less opportunity for something happening in between the on-site potable system or non-potable system and the system in the street. Again, we talk about an air gap. Next slide, please. And so then the idea of with this action is to make a connection between the potable system and the non-potable system. And I think the next slide provides a little bit more detail. Wow, this speaks to backflow prevention devices. Now, at the last meeting, members of the public did reinforce that many of the property owners have backflow devices on both their potable and their irrigation system. So we did do a visual and noticed that there's a fair amount of the newer residences that do have the both two reduced pressure principle backflow devices on both services. But we also noticed that there were some in the subdivision that don't. And so we wanted to make sure that the city's system is connected by a backflow device. Next slide, please. So our understanding, if the case is that you can see the, call it turquoise? Yeah, let's go with that. The bottom potable system with the turquoise rectangle represents the meter, and then you have the rectangle with the RPP, that's the reduced pressure principle device. Again, that's assumed to be an existing system. And then above that, you have the irrigation system with the purple rectangle representing the purple meter box. And that's connected to, we believe, is connected to its own backflow prevention device. So what we would propose that property owners could do is connect a T on the backside of the potable RPP, and then do piping, and then connect it to their irrigation system, and then continue so they end up having their irrigation and potable on the same supply. I think there's been some commentary in the public about the idea of would the city require the second device on the irrigation system, and we would submit that it's a prudent thing for a property owner to do, but it's not a requirement of the city. The city's really responsibility stops at ensuring that there's a backflow device to prevent backflow from an irrigation system into the potable system. We'll talk a little bit more about that on one of the other items this evening, where there can be reverse flow between an on-site supply and the city system. But this particular action is suggesting that we would really require and make sure that the reduced backflow prevention device that's protecting the city system has been certified, tested, and that the city has a record of that, in conjunction with allowing a property owner to process a building permit for the connection between the two systems. And then we've provided, whoops, a little fast. Back one slide, please. Thank you. So we did provide the idea of how much it would cost for a building permit. We've coordinated that with our building permit official, and that's about $230 for the permit. The testing for the RPP or backflow device, if we don't currently have one for the calendar year of 2025, then that would be required. Again, a new test would be required to be performed in 26, and that costs about $150 per device. And I think that covers all of the items on this particular slide. Next slide, please. And so this, I kind of talked about this. It's not a requirement, it's recommended, this idea of having a backflow device protecting the resident or property owner from their irrigation system. And so we kind of lay out some of the ideas of recommending that. And I think, are there other highlights on this slide? No, that covers that slide. Next, and permit fee and charge for it. Again, the idea is, why would we charge a fee? Because it does require staff time. If we don't charge a fee, then those costs and that time is absorbed by either the general fund or other ratepayers. And so the idea is that we have a fee schedule. The idea is that it's the permit process is supposed to be revenue neutral, and so it's cost recovery. So that's the idea why we would have a fee associated with it. And the next slide. I think there's some commentary as why is this taking so long? Why is it difficult? And all I can say, it's somewhat of a complex process to go from a development that was approved a decade plus ago, navigate through the CC&Rs and why it was formed the way that it was, working with the city attorney's office. And so I would say this kind of ends up as to here we are. I think we've got a path forward. And that, I think from here, next slide. We talked more about the abandonment of the purple pipe. I don't think there's anything else on here. Next slide. Okay. And with that, I will field any questions you might have.
Are there any brief clarifying questions for my colleagues? Mr. Barrett.
A clarification on, I think what's important here, and where at least I get confused, and perhaps my colleagues get confused, is between the public comments and discussions we've had with some of the affected residents, is what's required by state regulation.
Yep.
And what is in the hands of the city.
Certainly.
Where do we have options, and where do we not have options? And if that could be more distinctly addressed, it would help me.
Yeah, if we can bring up the slide, Mr. Clerk, that showed the graphic of the 2 meters and how they were being proposed to be interconnected.
Well, that's it.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
I sometimes feel like that.
Thank you. So the long and the short of it is the requirement to protect the community water system is what we as purveyors of that system are mandated. So making sure that there's a tested and certified backflow device on the potable system, on the backside of the potable meter, that's a requirement that's non-negotiable. In this particular situation, because we're connecting an on-site irrigation system to an on-site potable system.
And that's the state requirement from the
Correct.
handbook?
Correct. Through the cross-connection control policy handbook. So I think it's advisable that the purple water meter, the irrigation water meter gets removed, so there's not, and the pipe is capped on inside the box. Because ultimately, we still envision at some point utilizing that irrigation system to provide reclaimed water to this community.
So from a responsibility standpoint, we've got the well owner, we have residents, and we have the city. What pieces, if you had to delineate between the responsibility of the well owner, what do they have, if any? I hope they have some. The resident, and then what's our responsibility?
Well, I think Mr. Walsh we had discussed last time that the agreement between property owners and the well owner to provide irrigation water to the property owners was delineated through the CC&R process, of which the city was not a party. So I'm not sure where else to conclude from that. I mean, ultimately, the CC&Rs did, and conditions of approval talked about, once the city had a reclaimed water system, that it would be available to provide irrigation and water to property owners.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Director Leach. I don't want to go relitigate the past. I'm talking about right now.
Certainly.
The situation we're in. What are expected of the residents from a standpoint of paying or doing or actioning to get this resolved? What is the city's responsibility to do, if any?
Yeah.
Do the inspection, and what is the old well owner expected to do? Because I think some folks are confused on how that breaks down and what the left hand's talking to the right hand.
Sure.
And out of those pieces, I think it'd be helpful to know what's a regulatory requirement that's out of our hands. We can talk common sense. Does that make a lot of common sense all day long? But it doesn't matter if it's a state regulation. There's tons of things in the government that, believe me, lack common sense. We all know that. And it's good to know, right? Hey, we don't have any discretion here. And then again, what pieces that we do have discretion as a council, whether it's fees, and we can discuss whether we want to look at that or not for other reasons.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is the base question is, what is the city's role in this endeavor?
Yes, and is it based on, clearly defined state regulation, or is it something that we're just deciding ourselves that's arbitrary?
So I think we've covered the ground of the backflow device requirement to protect the city's potable water system.
And that's on the resident?
Correct.
So the resident would be responsible to re-inspect their existing backflow unit.
Correct.
Recertify it.
Correct.
So there'd be a test there. Would that be with a plumber, like we all have to do?
Yeah, it's a certified backflow testing professional.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the city's involvement as far as coming out and inspecting? Is that after it gets verified and new piping is installed?
So the city would inspect the new piping, correct?
Okay, so the resident's responsible for also taking the piping, replacing the piping from their home to the connect.
Correct. So it'd be from the back of the RPP, the up, the left angle, the up, and then the connecting to the purple
And
RPP.
that is the same expectation all homeowners have connecting to our system. Is that correct?
In this subdivision.
No, meaning in St. Helena. If I was building
So-
a ADU, are we?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So from an equity standpoint, we're not putting any undue costs or,
Correct.
anything like that.
Yeah, if
on
you
these
wanted to
residents.
do an ADU, and currently our code says you have to have a separate water and sewer connection for your ADU. We have since, our current updated standards affords the opportunity to tap into the existing sewer line, your sewer lateral, but you still would be required to put a separate meter so that we can bill you separately for your sewer connection.
I get 2 bills.
Yes.
Don't go off agenda, Councilmember Barrett.
Sir.
All right.
So
But
continuing.
all that to say is it's equitable to what our practice is in other parts of town.
Okay, is that all we're asking residents to do, and that's all we're asking them to take on? Or are there additional items we're requiring?
So a permit, new piping.
Okay, let's stop at the permit.
Well,
So we're all clear.
we have not opened the public comment yet, have we, Mr. Barrett? And we were in the
Okay.
stage of initial clarifying questions, so maybe you'll have one more initial clarifying questions, and we'll have more clarifications after we
Sure.
receive some public comment.
Sure.
All right.
So the permit is required by state regulation, or is that something?
Plumbing
that-
code, yes.
Okay. Let's open public comment. Mr. Mayor.
I assume there won't be a whole lot, but I'll open the public comment now if anybody wishes to address your council on these items. We have received written public comment, but happy to receive more orally. Ms. Stanton.
I was liking Mr. Barrick's line. I was following what he was asking, and I'd like him to continue if he has more of those questions. Of what is whose responsibility?
I understand that. We typically allow the public comment before we get into a deep discussion, but yes, that's fine.
Okay, I'm giving public comment that I would like to hear more of that.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Stanton. Ms. Burke, Ms. Stanton would like to hear more of what you have to say, so continue. I assume there is no
Thank you,
other
Ms.
public comment, so
Ms. Stanton.
I will close public comment and bring it back to Mr. Barrick.
Okay, so is there anything else from a clarification standpoint?
No pressure, Mr. Barrick.
Yeah, exactly. She knows where to find me if I disappoint. They have to permit it. That's a state regulation, not
Correct.
something that we can waive.
Correct.
Anything else that is in the residents' purview to pay or do for them to solve this situation and connect their home to potable water?
So let's start from building permit fee. Make sure that they have a current test of an existing backflow device, if it exists, or install a new one and get a test. Make the piping connection. Then we've got city inspect. Then they backfill, we close the permit, and they get a permit closure form.
Okay. What is the responsibility, if any, of the well owner and it's separate, correct? From that process can go without the well
Correct.
having to do anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, the last piece of the puzzle I did forget to mention, as part of the building permit, they would have to remove the existing meter, the existing irrigation meter.
From the well.
No, from the existing irrigation meter box. Because there's, as you see on the exhibit, the top purple rectangle, there's an existing irrigation meter in that box.
Right, but that was hooked to the well.
Correct.
Correct.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. And
Well,
that is
it was
also
hooked- Yeah, it was
regulation?
by proxy through the recycle or the purple pipe system. Yes.
And that is a state regulation, or is that in our discretion?
To remove the meter, it's within our discretion. I think the idea of it, we wouldn't want to the purple pipe system to be susceptible to some type of contamination or intrusion of something that we would want to eventually use. So not having it capped inside the meter box and still having the meter present provides some element of vulnerability of that system.
Do we have any idea how much that would cost a
To
resident?
remove a meter and put a couple caps on it? If it's $100, then we're doing something wrong. I mean, since you've got a contractor out there that's doing the piping and the connection work already, if it takes him more than 15 minutes, then we're doing something wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
All right. I have just a couple of questions. I want to get a little bit more detail on the obligation, if it is indeed an obligation, or the promise, as some would say, to bring reclaimed water to the subdivision. Where does that promise or obligation lie? Where is that in the CCNRs, or is that in a condition of approval, or is that just a sort of where does that come from?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the conditions of approval talked about the installation of the purple pipe system and its ultimate connection to a city supply.
Typically, a condition of approval wouldn't be the mechanism for an obligation by the city, correct? I mean, is there some letter somewhere or something that says, yes, we will be working hard to bring reclaimed water to the subdivision? Because there's an argument, there's a reliance factor there that folks, I'm curious about where that obligation came from and what it says. And then I guess related to that, let's assume that well is closed off, abandoned, and then let's assume we have the reclaimed water. Am I wrong to think that we would still have to go through the same process that you've laid out to Mr. Barrick, all of the different things, even with reclaimed water, we would still have to go through pretty much a similar process, right?
So,
Or not?
well, the short answer is yes, but it would be on the obligation of the Reclaim Water project to then reconnect all these property owners to the system. I mean, I think the idea that we would bring supply back to that same meter box and then force property owners to reconnect after they disconnected, who knows how many years earlier kind of thing, the project would absorb that cost. I think the other wonder is, depending on what comes out of our water management plan, I mean, between Magnolia Oak subdivision, if they're going to be moving on to potable water, they may not be interested in non-potable water at that point.
Yeah.
For
I'm not,
example.
and I want to make sure that we manage expectations. I'm
Certainly.
not suggesting that's going to happen overnight or that's in the ballpark. I was trying to figure out what the commitments were when this subdivision was approved on the part of the city, and it's still a little bit unclear to me, but I understand a little
Yes.
bit more. All right. Ms. Deasy, did you have other questions or
I'll
comments?
ask one. I'm generally feeling comfortable, so thank you for all the work. I know it's been a lot.
You generally feel uncomfortable?
Comfortable. I
Oh,
generally feel
oh,
comfortable.
okay.
Thank you.
Certainly.
But I just have one more question. Who owns the meters? The meters that would need to be, do we know if the,
So presumably it's by, I think there's a third-party vendor that the well owner has contracted with to read the meters and bill the property owners.
I mean, it's like $100, which $100 is $100, but should we be asking the well owner to, or is that just going to stop the process?
I think our goal was to try to make as much of this within the property owner's control.
Yeah, I understand that.
So, and that's kind of why we bifurcated the need to abandon the well and tying
Okay.
that to some of these other things.
Okay, so it's like about $230 for I'm just reconfirming because I liked it, $230 for the permit, probably $150 if they need to, right, which they would do anyway with the backflows, and then their own piping connection, which, okay, I get it, thank you.
Certainly.
All right. What are we thinking, council members?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
is there time for a public comment? There's somebody.
Are you seeking to have me open the hearing, the public comment time? All right, I'll give you the time coming in, and we will allow this. Please.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you. Celeste Neely, 1360 Magnolia Avenue. I was hoping that this was going to be removed from the agenda tonight or tabled. I definitely, along with many others, thought that this needed more time. I have been intimately involved with this. I have fought the good fight with common sense, and I have no idea how we have gotten here. It is astounding to me, the mental gymnastics of where we are. We are homeowners, yes, with a very flubbed plan from 2011 and, private well and regular water from the city. That well has failed. That is how we got here. The report is wrong. It is not about the residents not being able to afford to quote unquote fix or repair the well. That is wrong. I want that removed completely. The residents got involved with a well that was never maintained, that was then abandoned because the cost for the owner to repair it was too much. $57,000 was the estimate at the time. They abandoned it. We were left with nothing. The well quit September 4th, 2004. We have done nothing but try to
24, correct?
24.
Got it.
Okay. Over a year ago, all we did was try to be law-abiding citizens, to read through the easement, to understand the legal mumbo-jumbo, this and that, whose responsibility was what. And all we wanted to do was do the right thing. So we said, and this was actually, Chris Fowler is a homeowner. He's the one that said, I really want to get the city's permission. And as a person on the board of Magnolia Oaks, I said, okay, let's do that. Let's go be law-abiding citizens and get this. And we did this, and look where we are. We should never have asked permission. We should never have done this. This has been an exercise in futility. Joe Leach, you said that homes in Magnolia Oaks, that there are certain homes that you identified. Can I ask you, did you drive through personally? Did you drive through Magnolia Oaks personally?
No. We don't allow that kind of thing. You'll direct it to us, and then if we decide we want that answer, it's more appropriate to direct to the council.
The statement that was made by Joe Leach is certain homes in Magnolia Oaks do not have backflow devices. Magnolia Oaks was somewhat of an infill lot. It was 5 acres, 5.38 acres. There were certain homes that already existed. There are 3 off the top of my head that were already in existence. If they don't have backflow devices, they're not part of our community. That's not, every home in Magnolia Oaks has a backflow device. Every home has at least at one time a functioning backflow device. You only got threatening letters from the city if you voluntarily checked your backflow device. I moved in 2014, first homeowner. I checked my backflow device because my neighbor told me to. Guess what? I was on the list. But if you never got on that list, you never checked the backflow device. As far as what we're talking about here, there are multiple points to sever the well, sever the peripheral pipe, physically, hacksaw, take it, sever it, cap it off. Multiple points. The well will be completely out of the question. At that point, all homeowners are asking is to do what any other person in St. Helena does. They are simply asking to call up, let's say an irrigation specialist, and they are asking, can I have water because I'm too busy or I'm too lazy or I love my plants and even though they're drought tolerant, I just don't want them to die. That's all we're asking. We have gone so beyond this dirty, clean, it's just piping. After I sever the well, that part is finished. After that, if there is a section of squirrely little back tubing that has drip irrigation on it, it's no more dirty than it was sitting on the shelf at Central Valley. It will have potable water going through it, drip irrigating to my plants, that's it. If best management practice is to have I think it's called a vacuum break. It has a pressure vacuum break. If a pressure vacuum break is needed to just be this extra level, that is called best management practice, but it is optional. It is voluntary. It is not a permit of the city. Thank you. Thank you for opening this up. Thank you for listening. Please table this. Please do not pass it. I have a consultant that I'm ready to pay to give you guys some help.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Neely. All right. Where are we? More information, more data? Any response from the staff in response to Ms. Neely's comments? And then we'll bring it back to the council for more direction and conversation.
Oh, sorry, did you ask the staff? I just wanted to pump in with a comment. I know this has been a lot, but I actually think the staff has made a lot of concessions for the homeowners. So I'm still feeling pretty comfortable about it. That's where I am.
Okay.
Director Leach, I think hearing from Celeste goes to the earlier conversation of common sense and what state regulation, which often defies common sense. And I think Celeste came in, missed part of that conversation, but the breakdown of just there's things we can't control, even though it makes sense what Celeste and others bring up. You know, why can't, right now you can just hook a drip irrigation system right off your house and you're done. But if you want to hook it this way, you got to go through XYZ and there's no decision making, right? You got to get it inspected. There's just no choice, even if you would like to say, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Correct.
You're legally obligated. And I think that's the real challenging part for all of us here, because we're also look at it like, oh, you know what, I've hooked up irrigation like that before, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But then, welcome to California. in a lot of these areas. So I think there's some lessons here, communication, how we explain some of these things. It can get very emotional, right? These folks have worked really, imagine not
Absolutely.
having water for so long and
Yeah.
watching all your plants die and feeling like nobody's listening is, your heart has to go out to them. The well owner, I mean, from also the handbook and the law, there's a claim because they were responsible to provide water, but that's not a city matter. That's between residents and the well. And
Correct.
Is it Napa County that's sort of overseeing the well, or?
Yeah,
Well, permit?
they would have held a permit through Napa County.
So I'm where Vice Mayor Deasy's at here reluctantly. I did request to have this tabled and delayed based on the emails we were swapping today. I understand why you're moving it forward. I thought this discussion was valuable, but it's hard to make anybody feel good, even staff, I think, at the end of it.
Yeah. All right. Other comments? Sure. Ms. Patarotto, please.
I kind of want to piggyback a little bit off of what Councilmember Barrick and Vice Mayor Deasy were saying. I feel for the people that are going through this. That this sounds like a nightmare, and I wish there was an easy fix. But it sounds like once we're in this, like the questions were being asked, this is not something that's just an easy fix, because once you get the state and once the state's involved, there are certain policies and procedures that have to be followed. And if I'm understanding that that's kind of that is the situation that we're in, there's no cutting corners. You can't fix this in an easier fashion for those residents. I mean, then there we are where we are. And thank you for the work that you guys have been putting in. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right. Is this a matter to be tabled or to be moved along with a motion? And if so, I would, well, either one would require a motion, I assume, but I'll look for a motion. I think we've exhausted our conversation. But
Yeah, I think the challenge of tabling it is to what end, at least in my head. My heart says to table it, but then to what end? And my logical brain kind of shifts on, and like it. We need an ending here to allow residents unhappy or happy or somewhere in between to connect to the potable water and solve the situation. I think there could be a discussion about what we do, if anything, to alleviate fees. That could be a discussion point. I don't know how my colleagues feel about that. Or to just accept the staff recommendations.
I'm in agreement to look into ways to alleviate some of the fees for the residents.
do you want to make that as part of this motion, or do you want to make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation and then to look into that? I think the fees are relatively low. Some of them, I mean, who am I to judge how much people can afford, so I'm not going to be that presumptuous, but what do you think about that? I was writing down the different fees that were listed, and maybe there are more to it, but.
I don't disagree.
To what end, I guess, is another point, as you said, right?
Yeah, the one area of discretion would be the capping and removing of the meter, because that seems like the one discretionary point, and I feel almost with the promises that were made, even though they weren't legally binding, back when Magnolia Oaks, the development and the old council that was there at the time, the intent and the promise was clear, although not binding, to get purple pipe.
Yeah.
The well was clearly supposed to be temporary. It might be an act of goodwill to cover or allow some sort of rebate for capping if it indeed we need to cap it, and I have no reason to suspect we don't. That could be something we could do and show good faith. I think if we try to do, lower the fees elsewhere, it kind of gets into that, hey, that's what our heart's feeling, but then we set a precedent, and the fact is that every other owner in town that hooks to potable water has to go through the same process, whether it's new construction or old, and pay the same fees. That's
right.
my thoughts, Mr. Mayor.
What do you think about that, Ms. Deasy, in the form of a motion? No, I did well. I want you to have a dialogue with Mr. Barrick and see if that.
I
if
think,
you're-
thank you for the
Okay.
the nice thinking. Wonderful.
All right. Then I'll go back to Mr. Barrick, who's made some suggestions.
So suggestion would be to the motion would be to adopt the staff recommendations with, and I might need legal help here how to paraphrase this, what's the best way of covering and picking up the cap. If we choose to go forward, it doesn't sound like there's been a definitive decision. That's a city decision that we could leave with Public Works. But if the decision is to go forward and cap or remove the meters, that we would look to absorb those costs.
We could do that. Staff could remove the meters and provide the capping, if directed.
You look thrilled. I wish I had a picture.
Legal counsel, is that too vague, or is that enough direction in the form of a motion so that we have?
I think it's clear enough as a motion if staff feels like they can implement it.
Yeah.
All right.
Let it be so.
Mr. Barrick has made a motion.
Second.
Ms. Badarotto has seconded. Yeah, this is a tough one for everybody. I almost feel like I apologize for whoever made these decisions way back when, but it's another situation where our council feels like we cannot completely control the situation. The state is controlling it, and there's just a lot of other values and concerns in terms of precedent, in terms of public safety that we need to keep in mind. But I think our council members have expressed their dismay, I guess. But we do have a motion and a second to adopt the staff's recommendation with the proviso that that the staff be authorized to look into absorbing the cost, or in what manner the staff deems appropriate to remove the meter, cap it.
Correct.
Is that all right? All right. Roll call.
Councilmember
Bradley.
Barrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatarato.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yes.
Mayor Doran.
Yes. All right. Let's take a 10-minute break, please, and we'll come right back. Is the videographer ready? I can't tell. Okay. All right. We'll reconvene our meeting. Moving on to item 12.2, Parks and Recreation and Trails Master Plan Preliminary Recommendations. Mr. Camello, you can introduce the staff member and we'll
Thank you,
get
Mr.
started.
Mayor. I'll introduce Mira Strickler, who's our Deputy Director of Community Services. As you know, this is the study has been going on for the last few months, and today is a preliminary presentation. Mira.
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it. Tonight, I'm introducing the staff of Blue Point Planning, who will provide a presentation on the St. Helena Parks, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan, which is intended to serve as a guiding document for the city's comprehensive park system, community facilities, and related infrastructure, maintenance standards, service delivery, and program planning for the next decade plus. Blue Point Planning began this project in March of this year. Since that time, they have worked to develop an existing conditions report, gather data through community engagement, as well as evaluate the community's needs and develop preliminary recommendations, which brings us to this evening's presentation. Tonight, the staff of Blue Point Planning are seeking input from the City Council on their preliminary recommendations regarding city parks, recreation facilities, and possible new park projects for future consideration, and which will inform the final plan that will be presented in early 2026. The master plan should identify unmet community needs, provide a strategy for development, identify ways to improve equitable access of recreation resources, and consider opportunities for collaboration with other public and private entities. This is a significant undertaking for everyone involved, and it is intended to guide the work of the city and recreation staff in particular to provide short-term and long-term goals within the scope of community need, funding, and staffing. So with that, I'd like to introduce Blue Point Planning Principal Mindy Craig.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Welcome to the city.
Thank you. Nice to be here. So tonight I'm going to go and give you a basic introduction to the findings that we've gone through and give you a sort of the highlights of where we are going and really making sure that we're driving the boat in the right direction is ultimately what we're talking about today. The plan will come back to you in February. So this is, again, just an interim stop to get your insights. So you can see up on the screen, this is our process. We've gone through 2 rounds of engagement. I'll give you some highlights on that. We did this extensive existing conditions where we looked at the parks. We've been looking at the programs, the operations, the maintenance. We developed a vision and goals, which we'll share with you tonight. Looked at the needs of the community, looking at the demographics. We did some benchmarking of other communities, as well as looking at trends of similar communities of this size, and have not put that all together tonight to have our needs assessment, which you should have those pieces. From tonight, we'll move on to refine priorities, recommendations, implementation, and funding to go into the actual plan. Next slide. So from community engagement, this is really a community-driven plan. It's very important to us. We've done stakeholder interviews with a number of key people. We had several different in-person events, pop-ups with the community. We had a online survey. We have an advisory group that we're meeting with regularly, including tomorrow night, and lots of different responses, which has been great, and having a lot of conversations. Next slide. And so through that process, we've developed a vision for the parks plan. That's the St. Helena Parks programs and trails make life better for all by enlivening the community, supporting healthy people and parks, and providing active and connected public places. Next slide. And in addition to that, we have these 6 key goals, and these goals are fairly foundational. The entire plan will be built around this. We'll have policies that fall under each one of these goal areas to help to make sure those are a reality over the next 10, 15, 20 years. So connections is one of the things that has happened a lot. We'll be talking a lot about those connections. It's how do I walk to a park? How do I take a bike to my park? Where is it in respect to my home? So connections is critical, as well as connecting to my other community members. I want to make sure I can gather and be with other people in my community. That was something that we heard over and over again. Partnerships. There's lots of different people here in the community who are doing different things. We need to make sure we're connecting with them, working together, and leveraging each other's capabilities so we can bring the most to the community. Stewardship. This is a very nice word about making sure we take care of what we have, maintaining our parks, maintaining our current facilities at the highest level quality. Parks are a huge part of livability here in St. Helena, and we heard that again often. Making sure that we're talking about culture, recreation, events, and all of the different elements of our character and our identity, and building that into our parks plan. Being welcoming to everybody of all cultures, all ages, all ideas is critical as well, making sure those parks really do feel part of community. And finally, but certainly not least, is making sure that we really honor nature and preserve land and cultivate healthy ecosystems so that we enhance our community resilience and provide that access to nature and that respite that it does. Next slide. So now some key findings. Next slide. So some community insights. Again, parks are really highly valued by the community, but they tend to just focus on using one or two parks. Crane comes to mind, Miley. Those are the parks that people are going to all the time. Lots and lots of interest. We want walking, we want trails, we want pathways, we want it in the city, around the city, in any which way. That idea of invest in what we have and maintain it, key. And have more community events and more programs, more places where we can come together. That idea of partnerships comes in. One of the big ones is water access. We understand it's hard to get to the river, but how can we have views of the water? Can we have splash pads? Can we have other water elements within town, especially during the summer when it's so hot? And then recognizing that parks can really support a climate-friendly future for St. Helena, the beautiful trees, the green spaces. How does that help us have a respite, especially during the hot summers, or to protect us from extreme precipitation? Next slide. But with all this, there are some substantial challenges that the city faces. Recognizing right now you do have major financial considerations, and that is overshadowing a lot of stuff. But there's also been this inconsistent investment in the parks. Certain parks get more funding and more attention than other parks. So we're looking to see how can we balance out those parks. There's also a lack of activation and really thoughtful design and amenities to attract people. So the parks just don't sing to people. They're not as much in all of the parks as we'd like. So Crane, we've spent a lot of time in there. There's a lot of great elements, but the other parks are lacking in that aspect. And then we don't really have a cohesive approach to how we can leverage our parks for the betterment of economic development or for the community. By thinking about them as a whole and how they are connected to one another, can we raise them up and raise the opportunities of those? And then I think there's insufficient flexibility, agility, and adaptability to meet needs. So this is how do we make sure that the staff have the authority, the ability, the funding to go and do the things that the community wants them to do, and have the capacity to meet those community expectations, because they're very high. So there's a kind of a combination there. They need to be able to be innovative and agile while also needing more people just to do the work. And then this final one, of course, is what I started with, which is the current finances really has a limiting on the ability to capture those opportunities and focus investments effectively, because it's trying to stick with what we have without thinking of what we might need and what might actually do more for our community. So those are some key things that we've been thinking about. So the next slide. How do we move from where we are to something that meets that vision and those goals? So one of the key things is making sure our parks have a sense of place, that they say, this is St. Helena. And I think we've heard a lot from the community. We're not just about wine. We're family friendly. We're community centric. We have other elements that we want to share and talk about, and really highlighting that. We want to make sure we can secure a consistent and reliable funding and have revenue streams that help to make sure we can manage those parks. Leveraging our parks as critical elements of city livability and connecting to the downtown vitality, our neighborhoods, and bringing in tourism. Balancing those investments for the east and the west of the city. And embracing parks is more than just green space, but all those spaces in between, the plazas, the sidewalks, those underutilized places. How can this parks plan help to raise that up? And ultimately, to make all of this come together, we need to make sure we can bolster that staff capacity to help them build our partnerships, capture volunteer support, and to deliver those innovative and creative programs and events. So to do all of this, we are developing a implementation framework to try to think of how we don't just consider about the next year, but also the next 10 to 20 years. So we're going to have some key things that are immediate deliverables. These are things that can be implemented with our existing staff. They're less than a year, and they'd cost less than $250,000. Slightly arbitrary there. Then we have another category, which is meets our vision, and it helps to extend the value of our existing assets. We're not trying to build something new. Helps St. Helena keep pace with growth, and takes less than 3 years to implement, and then is less than an $8 million capital cost. Then we have long-term needs, and these are ones that are going to be 3+ years, require major new funding sources, and are going to be considerably more expensive. And finally, this ongoing effort, the work that we just need to do to maintain and steward our assets, having our ongoing staff time, and to manage things like programs and new events. So that's going to be the framework, and we'll have one quick slide next, which is an example of that. These aren't 100%. These are just sort of initial ideas. So in the immediate deliverable, Lyman Park is really underutilized, and we can see the opportunity to do some placemaking and some simple improvements to connect it to the downtown and really enliven that. Doing more planting and vegetation at key parks to, again, refresh programs. That's the secret sauce to make parks really become activated, is how we program them. The Napa River Walk is something that people really, really love. That's the going by the library up towards the river. And then the next level is updating the Crane Park picnic and play area renovation, doing a new event pavilion, looking at Wapo Park to do a walking path and maybe a wedding venue there. Both it would be serving the community, but also could have some revenue generation. Long-term, a interactive fountain at Lyman, looking at Hunt Avenue and Lewis Station and how those can connect in our downtown, and what does that look like, and how can that help with our downtown connections. A new recreation center, and then the reservoir is a huge opportunity to also serve a part of the city that really isn't well served. And finally, on those ongoing new special events services series, natural resources management, and then maintenance, and of course, more maintenance. So to wrap up, we are going to take this information. We met with the Parks and Recreation Commission last night. We're going to meet with our advisory group tomorrow. We have just finished up an online survey. We hope to hear from all of you. We'll be integrating that back, honing our priorities, working with staff. We're going to be drafting that master plan with our priorities, our fundings, our operations, policies, and the 2 to 5 year implementation plan. So you'll come back and see it in February. And that's it for questions.
Initial clarifying questions, Mr. Barrett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have one clarifying question. On one of the previous slides, and thank you for a great presentation. I'd love to see those all implemented. But the dollars, right? So you had 3 areas where it was up to $8 million in kind of the intermediate funding, and it didn't seem like there was any concern with having that funding as we exist today. If I infer that the last one above 8 million, that we would need more revenue. Is that so, or was that just omitted?
I think the idea of meeting the vision, this is like something that's pretty critical to the community, that we want to make it a priority. And so it would, in the next 3 to 5 years, how do we identify and bring that up? And I don't think any of those are going to hit the $8 million mark. I think most of the things are going to be considerably less. And even in looking at it, I wonder if we drop that number down a little bit so it feels more comfortable with where you are in that short term. So it's just a point.
So the idea would be that over that 3 year or so period, we'd be able to fund those improvements with our existing footprint.
Yeah, Lauren. Yeah.
Well, wait. How about no?
It's Lauren Schmidt. She's my project manager, and she's making sure I stay on track.
So we have a 20-year plan, right? And this is a 15 to 20-year plan, so this is looking far out into the future. So there are those 4 different categories, and maybe we could bump back to that slide with the implementation framework, if you're able to do that. One more. So different projects, so things might be broken down at Crane Park where there's a renovation of a certain portion of it or another, and we're gonna tag every little thing with one of these. This is our concept right now. Is something in that immediate deliverable? There might be 10 projects at Crane Park. They're not all going to be done in 3 years just because they're in that meets our vision category. The idea is they're going to be sprinkled over the timeline of 20 years. So you might do, a bigger ticket one of those that's a high priority for the community in maybe the next 5 to 8 years, and then maybe there's another one that happens, 10 years out. So I just wanted to make sure, we weren't saying meets our vision projects are going to happen all in 3 years. They're not. They're just, when you look at the start to finish, replacing a playground, for example, that's a simpler project than renovating a whole portion of a park, which is a maybe 2 to 3 year project by the time you do design and bidding and all of that. So that's kind of the thinking of this framework. I hope that clarifies a little bit.
Sure. Thank you.
I don't know if you had a question. I had you had stated that you were just finishing the online survey.
It just, we've done 2, and this last one was just focused on, we suggested people had a bucket of money and how would they spend it, so we could kind of get a sense from the community where their priorities are so that we can integrate that. So yes, I think it was just finished, Lauren.
End of November.
End of November. And we've had it open for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm aware of this, the survey. I took the survey. I just wanted to make sure that decision-making wasn't done yet without the results of that survey, which could be relatively important.
Absolutely. That's all come, this is like a giant funnel right now. That survey results, all the comments we're getting from you will all come into this honing.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me explore the area of what you mean by user. And I guess I'll ask a couple of questions and allow you to just talk about it for a while. Are we exploring missing users, those who are not participating, who they are, and how we can make sure that those users are not neglected? And are we looking at users broadly enough to go beyond our community? And I know you talked about leverage and economic development and those kinds of things, but it would be important to get a sense of, sometimes what is good for the community may be good for a visitor, maybe just as intriguing, just as interesting, maybe something that invites somebody to visit St. Helena. We'd love it, and somebody else would love it also. So talk a little bit about how you define the user and how we can work on that and focus on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So when we started the analysis on what does a need mean, we looked at demographics. And we have an older community here, but we're saying, hey, we cannot miss the fact that we're going to have all these young people. And we have a lot of teenagers. We know the first groups we talked to are some kids here at the high school. And they're not really served really effectively currently by programs. And they're really a hard group to serve, but we see them as an important missing user, I think is a good one, because they aren't really covered in some of the sports. Certainly they think they're a missing user. There are also things like seniors who haven't really experienced the parks, don't really know what's there. I think that's a little bit when I was raising the challenges, is that people like the parks, but they're almost just viewing the parks rather than using the parks in St. Helena. So I think a lot of the conversation and the emphasis on programs and activation and then creating new designs and enhancing our parks so they're exciting and more interesting. That could be with art, it could be with programs. It doesn't have to be really expensive, but things that make them attractive to folks who aren't playing sports, who aren't going to go and, walk their dog. How do we bring them into the park? So creating that innovative, creative programming is designed to attract those users who we're not seeing coming into the park. So we have a lot of young kids, like Craneway, we see them, they're running around, it's great. But what about the kids who are coming from the high school and really don't have a place to go? They may be not skateboarders. How do we get them a place? And there's often girls who are not being served in that same way. So what can they do? So we talk about an indoor rec facility is another area where we see some opportunities here. And then we're also looking at different trends. So these are more like, you guys have the most awesomest bocce league. I think that could be an entire, welcome to St. Helena. This is the bocce league land. It's awesome. But, what are the other trends out there that we need to be paying attention to? Pickleball wasn't not even heard of 10 years ago, and now it's all the rage. Padel is now on the rage. So there's other things that we're trying to also identify, trends that also connect to different ages. I'll say one more thing, I think I'll going on here. So, and then it's also thinking about as people are aging today, they're aging very differently than what we thought of 10, 15 years ago. Super active, really interested in a lot more community orientation. And so connecting that with multiple different activities. Last thing, we're looking at the park system, not to try to duplicate every park. This is a small enough town, we can say, what should WAPO be doing for the community? What is Crane doing? What is Miley doing? And they can actually all serve a different look and feel. WAPO with a walking park, more passive. We have the dog park there. We're thinking wedding venues. That can have a very different character than the really super active Crane Park where there's all the bocce league going on. So we're looking at this in trying to create balance for the different kind of users. Now, beyond your community, I think really the key piece there is how does a user, somebody from outside the community, experience downtown? As somebody who's a lifelong Sonoma County person, I experienced the St. Helena traffic driving through here, and it's a little bit overwhelming. But what would make people want to stop and stay is there a thing that Lyman Park can be leveraged and redesigned and reimagined when we look at the street. Because right now it's kind of hidden back there. Can we make it more of a statement? And then can we do things like connect the Hunt Avenue street where we have the wine barrel tree right now to Lewis Station and create more of like a plaza space where people can experience that. So when they're coming through downtown, they're like, oh, I don't have to just go off and go on my wine tasting. I might just stop here and get a sandwich and go sit in this lovely little park. And oh, isn't this cool? It's like street tables. This is fun. So some of those things, and then connecting to your point about what's good for the tourist could be good for the community. I talked about community connections. So looking at how, from a walking perspective, we can connect through the downtown, Lyman Park, the library, to Lewis Park, and then out to this Carnegie building. There's a really amazing, and we have a map I could show to you if we wanted to, how they all create almost this community civic, thank you, almost community civic hub that we could really raise up and help the community see that, but also use it as a means of bringing tourists to see these other different ways of engaging the community. And then importantly, programming, using Lyman Park. And if you look at this map, I think it's really important how big Lyman Park is relative to your other buildings here in St. Helena. It's a big footprint. And it has huge opportunities to have more activities, not just in those wonderful summer concerts, but also in, we were talking about in January, what if we had art, light festivals? What if we did a whole bunch of different things that brought people in, also for the community, but also for visitors? I'll stop there. I could keep going, but I'll stop.
Well, you've suggested a lot of potential options that we can look at exploring. I think my point is that just the term Parks and Recreation is a little limiting, and I would invite us not to limit ourselves to those categories. You had talked about, seniors, and there are a lot of active seniors. Okay, well, there are a lot of inactive folks in the world who are young, old, in between. And so I just want to make sure that we're not leaving folks out because we have these sort of preconceived ideas of what Parks and Recreation is. That's the point I'm making there.
Beautiful.
And I think you've handled that, and you've suggested a lot of different ways of doing that. Just one other question that's not related to this, but maybe somewhat connected. So we have a lot of space in the beautiful Napa Valley surrounding the city of St. Helena. How do you integrate the uses of those areas that are not designated as a jurisdictional St. Helena park, but can be connected in some way? I know we have open space, a master plan in the works, trails and open space master plan in the works. But are we consciously thinking about how we're connecting to those areas that we don't, quote, control?
I think there's two things. One, I was talking with staff today about the great connection and working relationship with Calistoga. And to me, connecting the Vine Trail programs and also how, people are really interested in biking, and the e-bike craze is a huge opportunity for folks. How do we create destination experiences in the Napa Valley? I myself I stayed at different hotels here and gone on the crossroads to go wine tasting, but also just to look at the incredible vineyards and the views. So how can we also look at working with unincorporated areas, our other communities, and create a system together to do that? So there's an opportunity. Calistoga is already a ready partner that we can leverage. And I think working with the Vine Trail and thinking about those in-between areas, creating a vision. I know one of the issues right now is the vintners are feeling major pressure. They're not having as much success as they have in previous years. So they also may be ready partners to say, hey, this would be cool. We want to be part of this destination trail that could be a bike link that connects our communities. It's also a thing not just for visitors. It would also be great for the community. So that's one of the concepts that we're also thinking about is how do we use that as a tool.
All right. Other questions? I'd like to open it for public comment at this time and invite folks from the community to weigh in on the sort of the direction that we're going. And yeah.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Tracy McBride.
Welcome.
Thank you. I think there's some good things in this 20-year master plan for Parks and Rec. And I want to draw your attention to the plan goals, which is a slide that was a little about halfway through the presentation that has, I think, 6 boxes on it about the goals. And there's just some specifics I want to touch on that I hope you'll consider. One is on the stewardship area. Longevity, I think, is very important to any improvements we do to our parks. I've been recently looking at the Lewis Station Park, and I think it's had several renovations since it was brought into existence in 1975. And I think we're looking at another set of improvements coming up.
You said Lewis, right?
Lewis,
okay.
Right. So those improvements didn't last very long, and that's not very sustainable. So longevity, I think, is a very critical word that will be looked back on these goals as planners look forward to what are we going to do with our parks. So please consider that. That means trees that have a longer lifespan, native plants, that kind of thing. In the welcoming area, I think consistency is very important with our parks. The park should have the same signage, the same rules, the same bathrooms. I'll tell you one thing that will make people stop and stay is a clean bathroom. So, let's get something going on with that. And I'm specifically looking at Lewis. In the connections area, what I'd really like to see is a process for volunteers to be involved with the city. It's one thing to say, let's connect, let's bring people together, but what really happens? What is the upshot? If there was a process, if there were volunteer days, if there was, here's how you go about making suggestions, here's how we connect to the different groups. There needs to be a process so that residents don't get in the way of staff and everything works smoothly, cooperatively. So I think that's very important. I do want to touch briefly on the idea of, that's very, very, lightly mentioned here, of potentially closing Hunt Avenue, connecting with Lewis. As you may recall, I'm a firm believer that semi-trucks should not be driving on our residential streets. Semi-trucks can weigh up to 80,000 pounds, fully loaded. A Tesla Model V, or Model Y rather, is about 4,400 pounds. That, it would be a really big deal pushing all those semis on our residential streets. So, want to alert you to that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Others wishing to comment? All right. I will close the public comment and bring it back. We have a fair amount of work to still be done, so I want to keep some of these comments a little briefer. Excellent suggestions are made. Other comments or questions or direction that we think we need to give? I'm pleased with what's going on. I've said the comments I made that I think are important, but others have any ideas or comments that they want to make in terms of suggesting, are they on the right path, I guess is the main thing. Yeah, please.
I'll be brief. Thank you. I'm very excited, and I could talk Parks and Recreation all day, but I won't. There's a lot of great stuff in there, and Ms. McBride had a lot of great stuff. I did have, I have two questions. One, I'll just throw it out there. I've sometimes wondered about marketing our town. It's one thing to have it, and it's another thing for people to know about it, and I think about it a lot, not only for visitors, but for residents. My observation is that St. Helena is a great town in which to live. I'll go ahead. And for families, right? So, I'll tell you what my idea is. Should it, right? Should we have how everyone stops in downtown and they look at the real estate? Maybe we should have, I think I'd pay for it actually, in one of those rotating picture things where you see people diving into our beautiful swimming pool and on the stage. So we do, yes, there's a lot of stuff to do, but sometimes I wonder about just elevating what we already have. And we could, we have a fantastic school district, and I hope that people know about all of the amazing things that are out there. So I couldn't pass up that opportunity. But I guess in terms of the process and moving forward, it's such an opportunity. We're so lucky to be doing this. I just want to make sure that we, aside, I know, money, and yes, wonderful, money is great, but that kind of strategic lens of really identifying our top challenges and opportunities and articulating high-level solutions to those challenges and opportunities. Lists will be great, lists and buckets, but that high-level strategy would be great. So I'm so excited. Thank you for all the work being done.
Good comments. Others?
I'll just say it's great, but I think we need to be thinking about with the Finance Committee and the residents how to pay for it. And when we are looking in totality around our current situation and what we're going to be asking for, potentially making decisions on the future, I think it will be important to be really clear about what it's going to take to fund this, and if we do collectively want to fund it, what that means as far as residents, taxes, or other revenue sources.
Ms. Battlroto, please.
Thank you. I was debating on whether or not to say this or not, but thank you, Councilman Barrick. I think one of the things we really need to be thinking about as well, looking at this, is there are question marks in our future as far as downtown specific plan and potentially what we're going to be doing with certain city properties that we own. So my only hesitation at all is just spending time and money on something that, it's always great to know what the options are. I'm a huge proponent of that, but I also am a little bit hesitant always of spending money that we don't need to be spending.
I'm going to jump in there. We do have money in the Parks and Rec fund, so, right, there's money to spend there. And there are also partnerships, right? So strong partnerships. We have, as an example, we have the Waves swim team there. And I don't believe that costs us a lot of money, but money is great. And then there are other things we can do also. So thank you.
So I think my point is, yes, we can always have different ways of funding it. My point is that we're going to need to find that and get it more definitive. I don't want to have this as another study where we spend $500,000 on and, you know, nothing manifests itself. So I think that's going to be behooved on us.
But it's not half, it's right, it's a, well, I think it's $100,000 study.
125.
125, thank you.
Well, sure, peanuts.
Out of funds that we couldn't use in the general fund.
Mr. Camillo wanted to speak. I think it's important that we all know this. It's just managing expectations. So you set something up which we can never deliver. I think there's that sweet point where you go, yeah, this is doable. You want to dream big to a certain degree, but you also want to manage expectations. I do agree that if you don't plan for it, it'll never happen. So you have to have at least some basic plan. That's why we're here. But we have to be sort of modest in our thinking, make sure we are at least covering. I think the way you phrase it in the near term, midterm, long term, I think is an appropriate way of looking at it. We know what we can do up front. The basic things, maintaining the basic things we're not really doing as much as we should be doing. And then we need to probably continue to connect more and listen more to our community. And our community is ultimately going to have to decide what it wants and how it thinks it's going to pay for it. So, Mr. Camillo, I know you wanted to make a comment, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I think prioritization, at staff level, we have talked about it, and when I spoke with Mindy, I mentioned that prioritization is going to be critical. I like the fact that they put it into different categories in terms of size as well, because there are tranches that we may want to get to. We can maybe do 2 of the small projects and none of the bigger ones, or vice versa. But I also I was remiss, I didn't acknowledge that Ms. Strickler is handling this even though she's from the library side of the community services, because I assigned her this function. She's done a great job, so thank you. Also, of course, actively involved in this whole process is Ms. Sylvester, who is from the Park and Rec side of the house. And finally, I just want to say that the council will have and the staff will have some opportunities to get some funding. We will have, well, it sounds like we'll have some development activity in the city. And so that would be an opportune time for us to look at strategically what's in the city's best interest in terms of livability and economic development, and we can leverage those 2 principles to negotiate community benefits.
All right. As long as I get my amphitheater and my outdoor jazz and Shakespeare, we're going to be good, right? That's what I'm looking for. Any brief summarizing comments?
I think we have heard the need for this funding. Feasibility is a really critical thing, and we're really thinking about that. We want to see where we can find some good wins early that are not huge, but also making sure that we can also provide some vision. So as you have that opportunity, we can do that. And just because it's visionary does not mean it has to be super expensive. And we're not thinking build, build, build. We're thinking how can we just enhance what you have, which is really amazing. And so thank you for tonight. And yeah, really appreciate the comments and also from the public. Those are great things for us to take into account as we get to the next step. So thank you.
All right. Continue on. Thank you for your work.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Can we thank the Parks and Rec Commission too, some of whom are here?
Thank you, Parks and Rec Committee. We appreciate it.
All right. Looks like we're on to 13.1 under new business, Mr. Camillo, if I'm not mistaken. Consideration and adoption of a resolution approving the pavement management plan and approving the Measure U 5-year list of projects. I assume that's Mr. Leach, but I'll let you introduce Ms. Leach.
Mr. Leach will make the presentation.
All
Yes,
right.
sir. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, it is, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is kind of a standard routine thing that we do every 2 years. We bring before you the update to the 5-year paving management program. This is a condition of the Now Measure U process, where we bring the list of projects, and the projects are really developed through utilizing the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's Street Saver program. In conjunction with also the MTC does provide a grant for the PTAP, which is the Pavement Technical Assistant Program. I'm just trying to squeeze in as many acronyms as I possibly can in this presentation. But really through all of that, what comes out of it is a list of streets that are either going to receive a full rehab, which we call mill and fill, which is a milling of the top 2 inches of the pavement and then filling with 3 inches of asphalt on top of that, or a microsurface or slurry project. And what we've programmed in the first 2 years are mill and fill projects, and the last 3 years will be more maintenance or microsurface. And the expectation is by the completion of the fiscal year 27 projects, the city should realize a PCI or pavement condition index of 80. And we talked through funding. We talked through additional projects that are going to be funded through Measure U. We also talk about in the staff report that once we do achieve a PCI index of 80, then we would anticipate about an average between $500,000 to $600,000 a year in maintenance, between microsurfacing and such, and then the balance of our annual funding could be utilized for sidewalk rehab, could be for storm drain project. There's one of the attachments gives a laundry list of all projects that are eligible for Measure U, or for financing for larger extension projects like the Adams extension or the Oak Avenue extension. And with that, I will field any particular questions you might have.
Because it's a sort of an evolving process from 5 years, and we're in the middle of the 5-year cycle now, it's a little unclear to me what stage we're in the next, say, 2 or 3 fiscal years. Are we in the mill and fill? Are we in the, what was the other one? Microsurface. I'm a little I'm struggling there. Just say the next 2 years. Where are we now?
So we're completing some both microsurface and mill and fill projects this calendar year. And this fiscal year, we'll be doing more mill and fill projects next summer of 26, which will be a combination of fiscal year 26 and 27. And then most likely in fiscal year, the summer of 27 will be our last round of significant mill and fill projects.
All right. Any clarifying questions from my colleagues at this point? A comment, Mr. Barrett, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment and thank the city staff for really what I think is a turnaround, a great turnaround, and started with previous councils of our road situation. Wow, it's really an improvement everybody can feel, I think, without exception in town. So I know you don't hear thank you or good job as much as you should. This is one where thank you and good job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we should acknowledge that Mario Traverso has really done a fantastic job in leading these projects. So yes, the Public Works team has done a really good job in this area.
Just wait till Oak is done.
I saw it started.
Yes.
Salud. Yeah, I think that Mr. Barrett makes an important point. There are very few moments where you go, oh yeah, the city's doing a really, really, really great job. And we've made some significant improvements. In fact, Mr. Camella, we've shown the most improvement over the last, I guess since 24 in terms of the 11-point increase on our PCI, the best improvement over that 1 year of all of the, I think there were 100 and so cities in the county and the 9 Bay Area counties. So others are recognizing it, and we have much more work to be done. But yeah, I think we should celebrate and give congratulations to the staff and Mr. Traverso and others to move these projects along and be really have a lot of creativity in terms of how they're combining different projects at different times. We've talked about this before, just really heartening that we're taking the onus to do that. And so I'm very proud of that. So let me open it to public comment.
Hello again, Tracy McBride, and I'll echo that. I love our somewhat recently paved street on the section of Hunt Avenue that was done. It makes a huge, huge, huge difference in terms of the volume of noise. When you're in your front yard, you can hardly have a conversation when a street is really in disrepair. And alleluia, the last 2 blocks of Hunt are going to get paved over on the west side, so thank you. My comment tonight is there a possibility, I realize this is kind of tangential, but is there a possibility that we could get some no-through trucks signs in St. Helena like they have in Sonoma, right off of the square? I mean, this is how we keep our streets nice. This is how it's for safety. It's putting trucks where they're supposed to go. I get that people take shortcuts, but when it's every day, I have seen Safeway tractor trailers turn around down on June Lane, and they're not supposed to be there. So if you could consider putting some no-through truck signs around, I think that would be amazing. Thank you.
Good comment. Thank you. We'll have to look into that. I know that Mr. McKelly is on that committee of one, at least in his neighborhood, but we should look into that, the legalities and the appropriateness of that. If it's going to save the work, create more longevity for the work we're doing, it certainly makes sense.
Certainly.
All right. There's one road that runs by RLS that is in really bad shape, and it looks like it's not going to be repaved for a while. I know we do this sort of negotiation, and I don't intend to do that. That'd be just one I would take a second look at. What is that? Elmhurst, I believe. That is a really rough patch, and so I think to wait till 30 for that one is a little, I don't know. I'll let others make that decision. It's just one that I noticed, and it's like it's in bad shape. But I think I'm fairly satisfied with the way it's been all set out, and I know everybody feels like they want their road done now. It's just a constant thing, and so, yeah, I get that. I'm not asking for my own road, Mr. Camello, just the one that runs by the school. Anyway, are we satisfied in terms of? I think the direction is to go forward. I don't think you necessarily need a motion, or do you need a motion?
There is an adoption.
Adopt the resolution. I'll look for. Yes. I'll look for that motion then.
I'll make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation.
All right.
Second.
And that is to approve the pavement management plan and the Measure U 5-year list of projects. So motion and a second. Mr. Bradley.
Councilmember Brock.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatarato.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yes.
Mayor Doing.
Yes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you for that. Thank you for the good work of staff and for public comment. All right. We are on to item 13.2. Get a little closer. This is the consideration of a resolution authorizing $25,000 of hardship assistance funding for backflow prevention installation requirements following detection through smart water meters. Mr. Camello.
I'll just turn it over to Mr. Leach.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Camello. This item is, I think, made a brief comment on this at the last meeting. The city has sent out 23 letters to customers. Just as a reminder, that's 23 letters out of 2,700 customers where through the Ion Water application, the city was able to detect reverse flow or backflow where the water is flowing from the customer back into the potable water system. And the purpose of the letter is really to notify the customer of the situation and the need for them to install a backflow device. It's a public health risk, and we acknowledge that it can't possibly come at the worst time of the year that we issued these letters. And we issued these letters before Thanksgiving. And with that, we, in an element of sensitivity towards the time of the year, extended the ability for customers to install a device by to the end of January. And we also understand that this can come as a hardship. So the idea of this pilot program is to dedicate monies towards it, for which staff would retain a contractor to install the backflow device, get the device tested and certified, and then the cost of the device would then be repaid through the utility billing program. And with that, I think that covers the highlights. With that, we have been contacted by one customer, only one customer that has informed us of the hardship that she's experiencing, and so that kind of was primary impetus to develop this pilot program. And with that, I'll field any questions you might have.
Any just brief questions at this point? I know we're going to have to make a motion here in a second, but I'll wait a couple seconds or a couple minutes. I'll open it for public comment, if there is any. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back for discussion, comment. Ms. Badarado, thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question, and I believe I already have the answer to this because I had a conversation earlier, but I just wanted to double check with that dollar amount, the $25,000. If I understand right now we only have one person who has reached out for assistance. If we wind up with more people that once they're going through this process of having things inspected and such, they also run into hardships, do we have in our budget, or are we able to increase that dollar amount if necessary?
We would have to come back to council for that action.
But it's possible.
I believe so.
Thank you.
All right, other comments, questions?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this back. I like the word pilot, and that it means we'll test something and learn from it and be able to grow. So I understand the backflow rules, or whatever they're called, are getting more and more stringent. So maybe it's just a comment that I think it makes sense for us to be really thinking hard about what our future policies are going to look like and how this is going to potentially play out around town. And then I have one technical question that I was asked and I could not answer. What are the odds that our new smart meters are so sensitive now that they can pick up on backflow that's coming from flushing activities? And if that is a possibility, should we be trying to correlate it? I have no idea.
So what are the odds that the smart meter can detect that sensation?
That's like causing, that's what's triggered people. That's what's triggered these notifications.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we've concluded that yet, in part because there's only 23 and they're in various locations around town. We haven't put the correlation with flushing that did or did not take place on that day or those days and when we read the meter, because we get an alert when that happens, when there's reverse flow. But the meters are very sensitive.
Right, because so if, let's just say that were the case, would that like, oh, they're picking up a flushing event, would that mean that there's actually not risk, it's just our own water? What would that mean?
No, there's still risk because there's water coming from private property back into the public system.
Okay.
Because the water's going the opposite direction.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Barrick, did you have a comment or question?
So just following up on that, so Director Leach, you're saying that even though that these are sensitive, it's still indicative of something that needs to be remedied.
Correct.
And so your staff is very comfortable, and that's dictated again by the state regulation. You don't have a choice to say, it's just a little bit.
The California Connection the Cross Connection Control Policy Handbook dictates this.
Thank you.
Certainly.
one of the rare times that, and I'll acknowledge it, that I actually agree with the public comment submitted by Kelly Wheaton. But there's two different things going on here. So her comment is sort of long-term planning for the backflow prevention devices and potentially looking at that as sort of a volume kind of thing, just like the smart meters, and looking at how we do that and maybe getting some policy decisions made there at the Water and Wastewater Committee level. That's a separate, more longer-term issue, which I think is important to look at because we're all going to be presumably in that situation. And so we should start thinking about that from a policy perspective. I also, I do think we should, it's not going to stop me from opposing this, I don't think, but we'll see. I do think we should get more data on, in terms, and the Vice Mayor makes a good point in terms of sort of maybe the potential causes here. And then maybe more data in terms of, is it an ongoing thing? Is it a one-time thing? Did it just happen one day? Or is this a continuing situation that we desperately need to address? Doesn't seem like there's a lot of data there. And then I don't know if $25,000 is going to be sufficient given the costs that are involved here. And I'm sure the costs are all over the map depending on who you hire. I think we start somewhere and see where it goes, and maybe then you come back and say, okay, well, everybody's taken this opportunity, but I don't know if there's a cap on the amount, and we should discuss that. If one person comes in and says, well, I got an estimate from my plumber, it's going to be $10,000. Okay, now you have 15,000 left. I think we should kind of think through that. I think I'm comfortable with helping out people, especially the ones who've already come to us and say, this is beyond my means. I think it's important that we help folks. But I just think there's got to be more deeper thinking in terms of the long-term implications with potential state mandates, and then also just trying to figure out what is the cause of the backflow and why these 23 and why not others.
Right. So to respond to some of that, Mr. Mayor, the council did adopt the cross-connection control program.
Okay.
I want to say that was in June, if I remember correctly. And part of that program is to start actually a survey that's required by the state, again, by the cross-connection control policy, where we have to go to the high-risk users first, and those are industrial users, commercial users, and survey them and their uses and making sure that they have the correct backflow device. Ultimately, it's going to come to residential as mandated by the state. So when that happens, I think in our schedule is something over the next 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So how that gets funded for the city's role in assisting with that program, I think that'll be a policy, to your point, that can be vetted through the Water Wastewater Advisory Committee. Are there grants that we can pursue type of thing? So,
All right.
more to come.
All right. Any other concerns or questions? Oh, Yes. Councilmember Spataroto has alerted to me. Let's see. I have 8:59. It's 8:59 on a city-issued iPad. I'll look for a motion to extend. I don't know how much. I think we probably need to go to 9:30. It looks like.
I'll make the motion to extend to 9:30.
All right. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Begrudging second.
Begrudgingly. All in favor say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed? None. That motion passes unanimously. Will extend to 9:30. We may not get to all of the items, Mr. Camelo. You think about prioritizing the ones that you deem most important. But on this one, is there any further discussion before I look for a motion? It doesn't look like it. I will look for a motion in a second if there is one. This is consideration of a resolution authorizing $25,000 of hardship assistance funding for backflow prevention installation requirements following detection through smart water meters.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendations on 13.2.
I will second that motion.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Roll call. Mr. Bradley.
Councilmember Barrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Spataroto.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yes.
Mayor Doring.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, item 13.3. Let me read this one out. It's a lot here. Consideration and adoption of resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease purchase agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management to lease 9 new operations vehicles for Public Works and Community Services Department and purchase 1 new operations vehicle for Public Works for a total not to exceed amount of $463,794, including a 2% contingency, and to lease comparable vehicles if the specified models are unavailable. Mr. Comello, I'll let you introduce the item and the staff member.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For this item, we'll have ACM Leach make the bulk of the presentation, but we'll also have a funding component, so I want to make sure that we have the input from Director Kellogg. I just want to say before Mr. Leach makes his presentation that my preference would be to purchase vehicles. This is what I do in my personal life. It's what most agencies do if they can afford it. And that's because most agencies hold on to vehicles for 8, 10, or more years. We are no exception in that area. Unfortunately, some of our vehicles have gotten, in the last couple of years, so old that we have chosen to begin to lease vehicles. Of course, that's because of our fiscal constraints. And so I just want to point that out, that the reason we are leasing so many vehicles as opposed to purchasing it is because of our financial constraints. With that, I'll turn it over to ACM Leach.
Thank you, City Manager Comello and Mayor and Council. We will embark on this journey. What we've put together in both the staff report and the presentation is kind of delineating the need for vehicles to be replaced. We've kind of highlighted the year, make and model, amount of miles on the particular vehicle, and some of them are actually being scheduled for either surplus or continue to be rotated within the needs for fleet. We have some staff, relatively newer staff, who don't have their own vehicle, and so that kind of hinders at times their ability to be mobilized for work. And so the idea is some of these particular items are being repurposed to other staff members. So you can see some of the incredibly high mileage vehicles that are 120,000, 192,000, 142,000. So clearly those are in the need to be replaced. And as we're finding on those vehicles that the higher the mileage, kind of with your own personal vehicles, the more opportunity for maintenance. And as fleet vehicles are essential operational component in our toolbox to serve the community, to Mr. Comello's point, the idea is let's make our dollars go as far as they can with the idea of replacing as much as the fleet as possible. So I'll stay on this slide for a bit and take any questions you might have on the particular makes and models, and then what's being proposed to be replaced. I will highlight that we are proposing to replace most of the vehicles with hybrids. We had looked at electric vehicles and are not prepared for the infrastructure requirements just yet. So, yes, ma'am.
One quick question. Ms. Beasley. Oh, thank you, sorry. The 2018 Ford Explorer with 18,000 miles jumps out.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the idea behind that one, I believe it's being
Given to someone else.
repurposed. Let me confirm that.
Which
I thought there was something.
Which one is that?
Well, that one's being leased, right? And they were trying to get away from the leasing, so they were gonna,
I'm sorry, I don't have that one at the top of my. Mr. Comello, did you have?
I do. I think what I was, my recollection was told was that the lease was up. And so we would have to either renew the lease or get another vehicle anyway. And so we were opting for a cheaper, more fuel efficient vehicle and a smaller vehicle.
Thank you.
Brings up one of the points I think Michelle hit on, going through the list. Can you tell us which ones are leased with leases up and which ones are replacements? It would help because they're two different animals. One, there's no choice because the cost you need the car, you need to renew the lease, it's going to cost you X. So 6 doesn't have the other, but for the others, there's a choice. It seems like there.
Yes, and let me see if I've got that matrix at my disposal.
While he's looking for it, just so you know, we went through extensive vetting internally, and we are looking at a couple of different spreadsheets. There was a pretty large spreadsheet we couldn't put on the.
Oh. Maybe it's in there.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there's one more. Keep going.
One more?
One more. Go again. There you go.
There we are. Thank you for helping me with my own presentation.
Well done.
Active enterprise leases.
This doesn't have the purchase or not, so.
This has a remaining term monthly lease.
Right. So these are the existing
Okay. All right.
leases.
So we have, it looks like here, we have 7 cars within 6 months, either expired leases or will be expired. Is that
Yeah.
Yes.
okay?
Sounds about right.
And out of these 7 units, are these on that first page of the staffing report in the proposal?
Let's see. We've got.
The 1918 Ford Explorers are.
Maybe this
Yes.
could come back.
01 and 02. There's 08. 08 is, and I'm not seeing 001. Oh, yeah, there it is. 001 WH. And 02.
So, okay. From a timing perspective, I think there's a lot of discussion around this, and it looks like we could use maybe another look at the staffing report to correlate things. We might all have some questions that we're going to send in that we have questions about. Just wondering, Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor, if we might want to table this for another session.
I think that's appropriate, but I'll look to staff to let me know what concerns you have about postponing this item for a little bit more detail.
I don't think it's not urgent, so we can certainly postpone it. I think there are some vehicles that when we come back, I think one of the things I'll ask Director Leach to maybe prepare for is what are the ones that we really need to, dispose of for one reason or the other. We can provide more information. Yes, we can do that. We can postpone it till January.
Well, I guess my only question would be is what additional clarity or what presentation, what additional detail are you seeking for us to put pieces together?
For me, the basics. So leased vehicles, right? So you're proposing that we're to sign a 400,000 plus lease agreement.
463,794.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think understanding what those 9 vehicles were and where they are in their life cycle and what the financial vehicle is for each, whether we own it or it's a lease expiring, and making sure that there aren't other cars that might be omitted, like the 6-month, cars that 6 months from now we'll need to release. I think there's some questions around, hey, should something like this go to the Finance Committee first? My feeling, just noticing some of the public comments on it, is theoretically yes, but not now, because we have the Finance Committee heads down working on what this council asked them for about a year ago. So that's the priority. But ultimately, I think to the mayor's point on the Water Committee, some of these items be good to explore, getting their feedback ahead of council input on an advisory point. I'd like to see those. I'd like to see options of what's the bare minimum, right? How much have we spent for maintenance on the owned vehicles per year on average, right? So what's the real cost, right? lots of cars are being run up to 200,000 miles with proper maintenance. It might be more cost effective for us to potentially do that. I'd like to see what our actuals were for repairs on these cars if we have an option. So those type of data points, I think, were questions I was coming in with.
Helpful, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say very helpful, thank you.
Strategy.
Just one question. I think we're going to table this or continue it for another matter. The idea of disposal does not necessarily mean, unless I'm misreading this, that we are physically disposing of it. Are there some of the cars when we categorize as disposal are going to be used by others?
No, if it's categorized for, it'd be surplus.
Surplus.
So there's a whole government surplus process that we would go through.
Okay. It was a little bit unclear to me whether you mentioned that there are some staff members who don't have access to a vehicle and makes it a little problematic. And I was under the impression that some of these vehicles would be used by them.
Yes.
And then they would be used by them.
Some of the, being repurposed to other
Repurposed,
staff.
I guess that's the word I was looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were looking at a larger list of 18, and by the way, I found that spreadsheet.
Okay.
But in there were 8 other vehicles that are being, one group is getting rid of them, but we're getting into someone else within the organization.
Yeah.
So,
I'll need a little more clarity on that.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
that's
we'll
one
get
other
you
thing.
that, yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you need any particular motion? I'm sorry, Ms. Potter, I was trying to get my attention twice. Third time's a charm, thank you.
My other just quick question was, the vehicle replacement suggested, is there a reason we've chose those specific ones? Have we looked at using other makes, models, and is that the ones that are the most, economically feasible? And, did you guys look into, obviously, repair records and which one is the most good bang for your buck kind of thing?
Yeah, this is part of the process that we go through with Enterprise. So as part of the lease program that we're in, we kind of go with a type of vehicle. So it's like a hybrid SUV is the RAV4 as an EV, as a hybrid. But the specific vehicle is going to be based upon when we're ready to pull the trigger and what they can get access to. So we negotiate that at the time as well.
All right. Do you think you have enough direction?
Absolutely.
Council, is it okay to just say, yep, we're moving on?
I would just suggest asking for public comment since you did have
I'm sorry.
one member.
Yeah, I thought we
public
were going
sold
to table
through-
it, but so in a way we aren't tabling it, so we'll open up public comment.
I warmed up.
I know Mr. Barrett threw me off, and I was like, oh, okay, we're going to finish this, and I realized you wanted to talk about this.
Thank
Please do.
you for thinking about this. Maybe it's just $500,000, but $500,000 for 9 vehicles to make 9 employees happy, when that same $500,000 could do a lot to make a lot of citizens happy with beautification on the parks or something else. The trade-off. I took exception in the report to the goal of replacement, strengthen financial sustainability, improve employee recruitment, retention, and morale. We've lost a lot of employees. Is it because they don't have a new vehicle? And enhance organizational effectiveness. Does this mean that 7 or 8 trucks will all convene on one area now instead of just 5 or 6? We're a small town. I think I'm glad you guys are looking at this, thinking about the money, thinking about what needs to be done. Thank you for considering your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Staton.
Put my shoes back on now. Get ready to go to bed.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to next item. I assume there's no other public comment. Doesn't look like it. Close public comment. All right, we're on to 13.4. Mr. Camelo, I'll let you introduce the item. I know that probably our counsel will be doing this. All right, look to legal counsel. He's given you a great introduction.
Sure, great, thank you.
Said a lot of great things about you.
So the matter before the council tonight is the consideration of an amendment to the employment agreement for the city manager. Relevant to tonight's item, the city manager's current employment contract provides for an annual review by the council, as well as an automatic adjustment of compensation that was most recently effective in July. The city manager's annual base salary was $287,830, with the automatic 7% adjustment provided for in the contract effective on July 20th. That went to $307,978. As you know, the City Council recently completed the City Manager's performance review and appointed an ad hoc subcommittee of council members Barrick and Summers
Bless you.
to discuss a potential amendment to the agreement with Mr. Camelo. The proposed amendment before you tonight is the result of those discussions. Under the proposed amendment, the City Manager's prior annual base salary would be adjusted by 3% rather than the 7% that it currently provides for. And the agreement would also be amended to eliminate the existing $10,000 city payment towards FICA and the $30,000 housing allowance. The city manager's annual base salary would be adjusted by $40,000 to adjust for that loss in benefits. Under the proposed amendment, the city manager's annual base salary would, as a result, would be $336,467, and that change would be made effective back to July 20th, 2025. So to summarize, the recommendation here tonight is to approve a resolution that's attached to the packet that effectuates the changes in compensation I just went over, as well as an update to the publicly available salary schedule to align the city manager's salary range for that new base salary that would be effective through the amendment. With that, I can try and answer any questions you have to the best of my abilities here.
Any initial questions from my colleagues, or maybe some of us have asked questions offline, if there are some areas that you've received either more clarification and would want to share that with us, that would be great. And I also look to Mr. Barrick, you were on the committee with Mr. Summers. If you had any preliminary comments, that would be great, in light of sort of some of the comments or questions. Anybody, feel free to chime in.
Just to open it up, I think
Please.
there was a number, we were all in the discussions. You know, it's tough with an existing employment contract that's signed. I think it's important for everybody to understand that it is not at the council's discretion to modify a signed employment contract without the consent of the individual whose contract it represents. In this case, that would be our city manager. So with that context, I think it's important for residents who are listening in to understand that. And what we were all striving for is a win-win. What this contract amendment does do for St. Helena is lower the cost by roughly $7,000. And to some, that might not seem like a lot. Maybe it isn't, but it's what we can do. And it's a win for the city manager, Mr. Camelo, because it does take his pension benefits and makes adjustments there. However, that cost to St. Helena is only at, I believe, $727 in total because of the way CalPERS calculations happen. Neil's only been here for a certain amount of years. He's been other places much longer. It's true those cities will bear a much greater increased cost, but not St. Helena. So I just wanted to comment there and set the framing. Again, this is a situation where we have an agreement with the city manager who is open to doing that adjustment. And I look at it personally as a win-win, which are tough to get in these situations.
All right, thank you for those comments. Others?
I will start.
Ms. Deasy, sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
So thank you. I always appreciate looking for a win-win. That is great, and I appreciate looking to cut costs from the current budget. This is a really interesting topic, so I always like to learn, so thank you. I learned something about how pension, and I'm actually, I think I have learned, so feel free to correct me if I get something wrong. I'm going to try and repeat what I've learned. Yeah, or an actuary, I guess. But so yeah, I learned a little bit more about how pension liabilities work within the CalPERS investment pool. So what I believe to me it was fascinating. I think I pushed back a lot, like this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. How are we going to pay someone all this money and not pay for it ourselves? So what I learned is that because of the way the pool runs, our pension costs are shaped much more by like our overall payroll and how CalPERS manages the system overall. So like our decision can add hundreds of thousands of dollars of liability to the system, but we're only going to pay $727,000 of it. I found that fascinating.
$727.
Sorry, $727.
You gave
Hundreds
the
of
town a heart
thousands.
attack.
I'm sorry, $727, like with 3 digits. That was just fascinating, mathematically fascinating. But okay, so now we're back to the pool. It's all pooled. And the conclusion that I came to, or the observation that I had, was that these individually harmless decisions collectively are creating these very large system-wide liabilities, which then affect us all. So, like, that's how it works, and that's the game. And I just personally feel uncomfortable with it. I have 2 more comments. Is that it does seem a little bit. I was concerned about the process of. Or usually we set salary ranges and then individuals fit within them. So this seemed a little backwards to fit a range to accommodate someone's wage. None of this. This is zero to do with performance. This is all about like money and how these systems work. My biggest concern is then probably what we do to the regional benchmarks for this position, which ultimately drive up the salaries of other cities and then ours in return, right? So we ratchet up our costs, and then other people have a policy to be within a certain range, and so it goes. And I've just been watching how this happens and how these unsustainable increases are happening. And I know we're just one little piece of it. We're not going to make a difference, but I would feel. I'm not comfortable with it. I'd feel more comfortable leaving it as is. So that's where I am.
All right. Any other observations or questions before I open it to public comment? Open it to public comment. I'll close public comment. All right. I think we're often confronted with issues where we have these, here it is before us, this is a decision that affects us, but then there are larger implications and broader policy issues. I think it is good to look at that, and I don't disagree with the implications on a larger level. You use the word game, it's the system has been in place. It's a little bit bizarre because we have little control over a lot of things, and welcome to my world. But that's what we have here. I'm comfortable with the recommendations made by the subcommittee of Mr. Summers, Mr. Barrick. I'm pleased that there was an offer of taking less salary, adjusting it. Also, I think, I don't want to get into too much of what was said in closed session, but we got into everything. It's we can't really talk about that in open session, but it was a broad view, a broad review of as we do every year, and trying to set goals and trying to get better as an organization. And I think one of the things that struck me is that I find Mr. Camillo to be a very hard worker, an extremely committed person. Were there missteps early on? Yes, there were. But, we're in a situation right now where you can look at the one individual and make your judgments, or you can look at, which is our fiduciary responsibility, look at the overall good of the organization and how all these pieces fit together. And it's challenging. And we're in a challenging time right now financially. We've made some significant cuts, and those cuts have affected our senior staff, including Mr. Camello, who doesn't have any, there are folks who are no longer with the city, and they were doing a lot of work. And so, in my mind, and Mr. Camello has not complained about it, but there's a lot of work there that there's a big gap, and who's filling that void? Mr. Camello and others. And so, I have complete respect for that. I'm never going to change the ways the folks out in the community are thinking a certain way. I understand it, but I think we all understand as fiduciaries this big organization and how we keep it flowing. And so I just want to put that out there. Again, I respect people who disagree with the way I think about these things, but we sometimes simplify the decision. It's a big decision, a lot of moving parts, and much of what we do in public session is limited because folks don't have the benefit of the conversations we had in closed session. So I'll leave it at that.
I would agree that Mr. Camello is a very hard worker, so thank you for all of the hard work. That is absolutely true. I know working all hours of the day and the weekend and the evenings.
Please.
Thank you. I would also like to say it's been a very complex year, City Manager Camello, and I really appreciate all your hard work. And thank you also for bringing this option to us of the 3% as opposed to a 7%. That's very, very big of you, and very much appreciated that and I think that the citizens should be very aware that you're willing to do that for us. You recognize that this town needs we need help everywhere where we can get it, and you recognize that. Rather than taking the 7%, you came to us with this other option of 3%. People can say, it saves you guys $7,800, but $7,800 is $7,800 that's saving us. And then they talk about your pension, but that was pointed out. $727 that's amortized over the course of 20 years. It's going to cost us $30-something a year. So that's, to me, it makes, I'm very appreciative that we have this, that you brought this option, and I'm on board. Thank you.
Discussion? Please, further comment or discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution.
I second.
Anything in particular?
I think that's good enough.
All right, there's a motion. Excuse me, sorry, I had my mic off. There's a motion and a second. The motion was made by Mr. Barrick, the second by, I believe, Ms. Spadaro, correct? All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Barrick?
Yes.
Councilmember Spadarato?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy?
No.
Mayor Doing?
Yes, that motion passes 3-1. All right.
So with that, actually, now that you've adopted the resolution, I will read out the new compensation just for the compliance. Yeah.
That's something, okay.
So with that resolution, the city manager's salary going forward will be $336,467. And some of the former benefits are now eliminated and have been rolled into that salary.
Refresh my recollection in terms of whether we need another motion.
Yes.
What's our drop dead?
10.
It's 10? Mm-hmm. Ms. Barrick, are you going to be able to stay with us until, I think we just have a short, the calendar.
10 minutes.
Let's move on to the next item. It's 13.5. It's the calendar we have.
Do we want to do a motion?
I make a motion to extend till 10, even though we won't stay that long.
Okay, that's a good idea. I had 2 more minutes on mine. But yes, there's a motion to extend to, let's say, 9:45. How about that, Ms. Deasy? Is that okay with you?
Sounds
okay,
great.
is there a second?
Yes, second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? None. We will extend to 9:45 and have a brief discussion on the calendar for next year. Mr. Camillo, you can introduce it. I know Mr. Bradley probably wants to chat about it, but
Well, I'll just make the request, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bradley has delegated that to me. For the next calendar year, we are suggesting as staff that we cancel 3 meetings, one in July, one in November, and one in December. July 14th, November 24th, and December 22nd. Today I met with, along with Acting Community Services Director Sylvester, that with the Cisco Centennial Planning Committee, and they have some thoughts about activities on our actual 150th birthday, which is March 24th, 2026. So we may have some activities that day. We are still working it out. So there's an outside chance that we may come back to you as a council and say, could you do something different for that day? But for now, our staff recommendation is to eliminate these 3 scheduled or normal regular meetings.
all right. Open the matter for public comment. Seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the city council for more discussion, direction. Any concerns about how it went this year, particularly in July, November, and December? All okay with it? We had special meetings. We have a lot of meetings. I think, let me just add this to the public's realm of knowledge. I was estimating how many more meetings we had from the time I first got on the council in January of 2015 until now. And I think folks tend to look at just these meetings here, the regular city council meetings. But I would estimate that the number of meetings I've signed up for, it's probably at least 1,000% increase. I mean, back in 2015, we did not have all of these subcommittee meetings, and it's just a tremendous amount of work. And thank you for my colleagues for participating. It's just unbelievable. I don't think all of the public realizes just the commitments that start draining us after a while. So where we can reduce meetings every now and then to just because of the other loads we have, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. We have regional obligations. We have so many obligations, but just the work behind the scenes with staff, it's just tremendous. Not complaining. I think it's, I'm thinking about at some point looking at the Calistoga model. We may have too many meetings, and we have to think about that from a policy perspective, what that means when you have a lot of meetings and we're just driving, we're just constantly on a treadmill for whatever you call it, a hamster wheel, just from meeting to meeting. Don't want to make that decision tonight, but I think we should start thinking about that whole kind of thing, the number of meetings we have, Mr. Camillo.
Will do, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to acknowledge that this council works very hard. I mean, even when there are no meetings, just the number of emails I get from you and the research you're doing, just yesterday, for example, the lengthy, detailed research that I see done is just a matter of commitment that you have. So there's that too. So some of that is, frankly, you guys creating your own work. That said,
Stop doing that. No.
Well, that shows commitment.
No. That's the world. That's the world we live in. I accept that challenge.
But the other piece is that we need guidance as things are complex. We need touch points with you guys. This is why I asked both of you, Councilmember Barrick and you, whether you make sure you're available tomorrow at 2:00, because there's a city attorney, myself, and a bunch of other staff that need guidance from you. And without that, we are stuck. We cannot move forward. So, yes, it takes a lot of time. The Calistoga and, in fact, Yountville model, by the way, where there are fewer council meetings, in some ways, especially in our model, which so much work is being done, it may require additional subcommittees and subcommittee work. So there's a cost-benefit analysis that y'all need to do, or we need to do.
All right. Mr. Bradley, do we need a motion here, or are you good with direction from the council?
If there's broad consensus that those 3 dates are okay, then I don't think we need I think we'll accept that as consensus.
All right. Are we all in consensus? Okay. You have it. All right. All right, now we're moving on to item 14, city council reports. Please.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar, or whatever, building off what we talked about. We no longer are liaisons to the committees anymore, which is great because it's really hard and sometimes you just need a dinner with your family. But I did pop into the Parks and Rec meeting last night. I didn't even stay the whole time, but it was really nice to connect that way. So I guess I would just, I don't know, encourage us all. Maybe we pop around and see those when we can without being totally committed. And they had a really nice bunch of discussions. It was great.
Yep, good comments. Others? All right. Well, we won't have another meeting in December. I'm in an official regular meeting, correct, Mr. Camello? We have about 40 other meetings that are behind the scenes.
That is correct. You have several meetings this
I only
week.
have to go to 39 of them as the mayor, but that's okay. No. Well, just want to make sure I wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas for those who are Christians and that means something to them. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. I think that there's going to be a menorah lighting coming up, so that will be, I was on emails, and that will be installed fairly soon, I believe this week, and so I think there'll be a press release on that. But yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. Make memories with your children, if and adults or friends, family. Now's the time to be close to your family and enjoy it. Adjourned.